bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you
Mr. Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, good evening. This is Talk, and it is Petrie here until 1 o'clock tomorrow morning. And coming up at midnight, I want to talk to you about what it's like to be a driver in the UK at the moment. Just driving a car, just being out on the road. And I have to say, I love a bit of driving myself. I've got a Mini, I love it. And I don't drive very much, but enough, and I enjoy it largely. But every time I go out in the car now, I wonder what's going to happen next in terms of fines, because where I live in London, they're always closing off some road with a little tiny sign that says, you know, unless you live here, you can't drive down here. And then the first you know about it, you get a £130 fine and a photograph of your car driving down a road that you were able to drive down the week before, but you can't drive down now without getting a fine. And that's how I learn about the roads that I can't drive down, is when I get a fine, because they never tell you. So it is precarious to do that. But the other thing is the 20 miles an hour speed limit. Right? I never get out second gear now. I mean, it's London as well, but you never get out second gear. There's no point, because you're doing 20 miles an hour. Now, in Wales, there is a discussion about lowering the speed limit to 10 miles an hour, if not 5 miles an hour. I mean, cars, I don't even know how you drive at 5 miles an hour consistently. And they're saying they want to do this around schools, around hospitals. And again, if you live in a city like London, there's a school every mile or so. So everything would be 10 miles an hour. Everything would be 10 or 5 miles an hour. This is a Labour government, of course, who are wanting to impose a 10 or 5 miles an hour speed limit on Welsh drivers. And the concern is, of course, is that once people like City can't hear that, they're going to want to do the same around London. I mean, they're saying, of course, it causes less accidents. There are fewer accidents. Well, a parked car doesn't cause any accidents. Why don't we just say it's 0 miles an hour? It is absolutely ridiculous now. 20 miles an hour, and it's, you know, considered to be safe, I don't know, presumably. Now they want to lower it again. So I want to know as well from Wales, because I've got I've got a thing here that says that the evidence has shown that the rollout of 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in Wales was not only saved lives, but is actually now been welcomed by the people of Wales. So I'm going to test that, my lovely Welsh beauties. Tell me, do you now welcome 20 miles an hour? Do you love it? I thought you'd complained in the biggest numbers ever in Welsh history about it. But according to these people, you love it now. You're really happy with it. So how would you feel about 10 miles an hour or 5 miles an hour? And like I said, once other people see that coming in, we will follow suit. So all drivers out there, people who make a living out of driving, people who have to, I don't know, just drive. What's the point? Give me a call, 0344 499 1000. So that is the phone in at midnight. What is it like being a driver on Britain's roads today? It's just so dangerous. Not the speed, but the fines. It's just ridiculous now. The rest of the programme, between 11 and 12, we have the fabulous John Boothman, the political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. He's going to be going through the newspapers for Thursday. We also have a special half an hour, a very special half an hour for you, and that is Mission Impossible. So we've got lots of fabulous exclusive interviews with Josh Rom about the new Mission Impossible film. So that's coming up as well. But before that, it does seem like it is an impossible mission to stop cyber attacks. We know what's happened to Marks and Spencer recently. They say that that's going to cost them £300 million. I think that's probably the narrow end of that estimate as well. There's also, they're saying that they probably won't be back to normal until September. Online sales have been stopped. There's supply chain issues, there's all sorts of problems, and that was just I say, a cyber attack. Co-op has also been attacked, and only yesterday the CEO of HSBC UK, Ian Stewart, admitted that the threat of cyber attacks keeps him awake at night, and dealing with IT vulnerabilities is an enormous expense to the sector. And with all of us now having been encouraged to bank online, to use all these apps and to do all of these things because they've been closing branches down, so we haven't got a choice really. Where does that leave us if a bank is attacked and they just put zero in everybody's account? I mean, these are the things that are terrifying. So how do we stop these cyber attacks? Are we just seeing the beginning of this style of cyber attack, and why are we seeing so many more of them? And before you say Russia or China, it appears that the recent attacks have been coming from mainly UK and US teenagers. Yep. James Bohr joins me now, a chartered security professional and author of The Cyber Circuit. James, thank you so much for joining me. Look, it's all over the place at the moment. We know now how vulnerable we are. Why are we so vulnerable?
Well, do people remember the Blue Yonder incident from last year, from 2024, about November time? Because that was a similar attack. So these attacks aren't new. We've had them probably about every 6 months, and people just aren't demanding better security from companies in enough strength or with enough determination that there's a difference made. So we're vulnerable because we are allowing companies to make decisions which leave us and them vulnerable in these ways.
But surely they, I mean, as a customer, I have been assured that what I'm doing is safe. They've pushed, banks particularly have pushed us online. Shops are doing the same now. Surely that's their job to make sure that my data is safe, that my card details are safe. Isn't that their job?
It is, but ultimately, if they fail in that job and then 6 months later we forget they failed in it and don't hold them to account, they're not going to improve. And that's what keeps on happening.
So I was hearing with Marks and Spencer that was an employee that accidentally clicked a link. Is that possible?
Well, from what I've gathered from the Marks and Spencer, it appears to be that it was an employee who was tricked into resetting an account password. And that then gives them a way in, and then they can escalate from that because they're able to phone in, change a password, and they get in that way.
Ouch.
And that lets them do a whole load of other things from there.
I wonder if he's still got his job. I mean,
most likely not.
Probably not.
But
how come it's that
not
easy?
His fault.
But yeah,
that's the thing.
It's not. Why is it not his fault? I don't even click on links. You know, if people phone me up and say, "Can you change your password?" I say no. I mean, surely a random employee at a company would know that.
But your job isn't to reset people's passwords when they phone into the help desk and say, I've logged out, I've forgotten my password. If it was your job, you might reset the password for them.
Yeah.
And it's the procedures around that are failing you, because your job is to make sure employees can get in to change their passwords. And there should be better protections to stop you from doing it without the right precautions in place.
Why is it, though, that business appears to not be taking these things as seriously as they can? Have we just been lucky up until this point?
We haven't been, because these attacks keep on happening. So we've not been lucky up until this point. We've been unlucky repeatedly, and then people forget we've been unlucky, and then we're unlucky again. So the problem is, these are very, very old problems, and we're not solving them. Instead, what's happening is businesses are spending a lot of money on solving new, shiny problems and not solving the fundamentals.
How expensive is it for a company like Marks and Spencer or Co-op or HSBC to do a root and branch security, a proper security check to see, you know, like you would in your house, which doors, which windows, where are the vulnerabilities, and to fix those vulnerabilities? I mean, the best thing to do is to get a criminal, a housebreaker to come around and tell you where the vulnerabilities are. But can banks and shops and places do that?
And it's going to cost them less than in Marks and Spencer's case, 300 million, to get someone to do that and look at the problems and fix them. But there has to be the will to actually fix them and to face the friction and the pain of doing that.
In a lot of these cases, I mean, there was that NHS one, wasn't there, a few years ago, which was they were held to ransom, basically. Nobody could get into a computer, nobody could do anything until a ransom was paid. I don't even remember what the outcome of that was in terms of was it paid or not. I suspect it was. This group, it seems, is Scattered Spider. They think it's this cohort of young people who are English-speaking, natural English-speaking, it would appear. Are they doing it for devilment? Are they doing it for fun? Are they doing it for ransom? You know, are they doing it to prove a point?
From their point of view, it's for profit. They are making money off it. They're making quite a lot of money off it, and they're making that money quite safely. So they are doing it purely for profit.
So how are they doing it? This is a collective, presumably.
Yes, so from what we know of Scattered Spider and similar groups, they're not nation-state affiliated. They are purely motivated by profit. They're purely criminal. Now, with Scattered Spider in particular, you're talking young people, you're talking teenagers who are a loose affiliation, who have discovered this method to make money, and they get away with it, so they repeat it. Previously, a few years ago, they were attacking Caesars Entertainment and the MGM casinos in the US, and they made quite a lot of money out of that and got away with it. So why wouldn't you do it again?
How are they being paid? I mean, you know, the old thing is follow the money. Is it Bitcoin? Is it in some secretive dark web?
So when they're demanding ransom, that's usually in cryptocurrency of some kind. So it might be Bitcoin, it might be another cryptocurrency. They're then laundering that in various different ways and turning it into real currency.
And they just, is there where the way these collectives work, is there somebody at the head of it, at the head of the snake, or are they all like a cooperative? And, if one person finds a way in, do they all get how does that, I mean, it must work like an organisation.
So from what we know of Scatter Spider, it is more of a cooperative model, but behind them you have an organisation called Dragon Force, who are what we might call a ransomware provider. So they provide the tools. Scattered Spider find a way in. They then deploy the Dragon Force tools. They split the profits between them.
And is there any way of finding them, stopping them? Because, I mean, obviously everyone's going, we're going to track them down, but it seems like it would be impossible. You've got some 15-year-old in his bedroom in High Wycombe. It's not going to be easy to find.
There will likely be some of them found who haven't taken appropriate precautions. But honestly, it's just really difficult. With the way that we have set up these systems, they aren't designed to allow people to be caught if they take certain precautions. So it's a huge challenge. And on top of that, we've not invested in the capabilities to track them down and to enforce any consequences. We've not invested in the capabilities to prevent them. So trying to find them afterwards, well, there's no resources there to try and track them down and try and prosecute afterwards.
I mean, this is to a layperson like me who has to get my son to help when I get locked out or something. I find this unthinkable that there is this amount of or this lack of protection that I think as consumers, as lay people, we assume is there. That we assume that our money is safe, that my meagre savings in a bank account won't just be wiped out at the click of a button, and we live through this fantasy. In that case, I'm learning, and we need to be. But what do we do now? Is it too late? Is the genie out of the bottle? How do we protect ourselves from somebody breaking into a big bank and wiping out all our money?
Someone breaking into a system you trust, like a bank, there is very little protection. I mean, with a bank, you have got certain levels of insurance for your savings in that bank. I think it's up to 85,000. So no matter what happens to the bank, that's protected. But ultimately, companies are failing us as consumers, and we as consumers are failing to demand better from them. We're still using them, even though they repeatedly let us down.
But you've also got organisations like, let's say, the BBC, for whom I used to work, where they subcontract part of their, in this case, their payment system, right? So I leave the BBC, leave it behind me, I get gainful employment elsewhere. And then a couple of years later, I get an email from the BBC saying, I'm really sorry, but the company that we used for payroll was hacked. We weren't hacked. We're perfectly safe, but we just gave your stuff to somebody else. So could you you now need to protect yourself because all of your details are out there, your address, your bank details, everything about you, your national insurance number, everything that identifies you is now out there for sale for about £4. So over to you now, protect yourself. That wasn't my fault. That is a corporation being negligent by passing my details on to somebody else. But there was no protection offer. There was no, compensation, no suggestion that I would have, that I even should be angry about it. It was just one of those things.
You could be angry about it, just to be clear. But there will be no compensation offer. There will be no protection offer. That's simply the world that we live in because we as individuals are not demanding better. We've just accepted this, and we've accepted it for years, but over a decade now.
I know what you're saying, that we're not. I don't think we've accepted it. I think we're just not as switched on to it. We've kind of ignored it in a way. But in a situation like that, and thousands of other employees at the BBC as well, That's not our fault. That is not down to us. That's they didn't offer me the option to have my money handed to me over the presenting desk in a brown envelope once a week. I had to be paid. They were responsible for paying me, and they were responsible for choosing the systems with which I was paid. I fail to see that as an acceptance of slack behaviour, rather more than that's just what had to be done.
Yes, you were forced to do that. That you did not have an alternative if you wanted to be paid. You couldn't say, well, give me the brown envelope instead, as nice as that might be, but you find a bank branch to cash it anyway.
Yeah, quite.
So there isn't an alternative, but these systems are now in place, and there are regulations which are meant to protect us, but they are very weakly enforced. And because they're not enforced, their meaning is almost nothing. What
would you change immediately if you were suddenly Prime Minister?
I would put accountability in for any of these breaches at a personal level for organisations at the most senior levels.
Yeah, so immediately in that case you'd have said to the BBC, right, that you did that, Tim Davie, that you're responsible for that. You chose the company. They weren't secure enough. Now you've got to pay a fine.
Someone in that company signed off on accepting this one without doing the proper due diligence, and therefore there is a person to blame. And that's a key thing.
Yeah.
It is about personal accountability. Corporate accountability, we keep on seeing, doesn't work.
And as for Marks and Spencer, is your fear, and Co-op and others, is your fear that they just will not learn from this?
Well, they didn't learn from Blue Yonder just over 6 months ago, which was a very similar incident. I don't think they'll learn from this. I don't think they learned from the previous ones. And the sad fact is, unless we actually start having them face consequences for their actions, which last more than a 3-month dip in share price, they're not going to learn from this.
So what do you fear in the future in terms of, we know we're being attacked all the time. We know there are warehouses full of attackers in Russia and China and other countries whose job is to infiltrate our infrastructure. That is, aside from the banks and businesses and shops and retailers, what is your number one fear with the way that this hacking seems to be going now?
It's not the way it seems to be going, it's the way it's been for a long time. And my number one fear is that we go from a place where it's criminals looking for profit to people looking to cause damage, because the capability is absolutely there. The weaknesses in the systems are absolutely there. And what's protecting us is mainly that there aren't people out there just looking to cause this damage with the knowledge to do so.
So when it turns completely malicious?
Yes. But if it really seeks to cause harm, people can cause harm.
But is Russia not up there yet? Do they not have the skills of this scattered spider?
They have the skills, but whether they want to escalate to that level, because if they do so, that opens up a whole new field. It doesn't just go one way.
Yeah. Well, I won't sleep tonight now. But thank you. Thank you very much, James, for ruining my night. James Ball there, chartered security professional and author of The Cyber Circuit. Yeah, great. Quick break.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, it's Petrie here with you, and I know that I'm going to have a very sad son today because Man United did not win against Tottenham. I hope I haven't spoiled anything for you, but anyway, it was 1-0 to Tottenham. And just to let you know that Talk has exclusive national radio commentary from the Premier League this Sunday, May 25th. On the last day of the season, Joe Shannon and Perry Groves will bring live Premier League commentary from Craven Cottage as Fulham take on Man City. Kick-off, in case you're not aware, is at 4 o'clock. So there you go. Make sure that you tune in to Talk as we duo cast. Is that the right thing? We talk sport. So there you go. Right, coming up at midnight, we have the phone in. And I do want to hear from some of my... simply because, I mean, I have to be honest, it's because I love a Welsh accent. I've got to be honest with you. I've got to be honest. So I do want to hear from some of our lovely Welsh beauties as to why it is, it seems, that you have now accepted and embraced and potentially love the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit that was forced upon you. And I'm slightly tongue-in-cheek with this because I don't believe you are in love with it. But you better look back on the days of 20 miles an hour. You could look back on them with glee and love, as you learn that Labour is considering cutting speed limits in certain areas in Wales to 5 miles an hour. So 20 will be like, whoa, do you remember the days when we could do 20? I mean, it's not going to be long, is it, until they make us have a man walk in front of the car with a red flag. We're going back to that. Everybody will have to employ somebody to walk in front of the car with a red flag as a warning that there's a vehicle on the road. But yeah, in the Senate, the devolved Parliament in Wales, we've been asked to rule out cutting speed limits to 10 miles an hour. And she said, well, clearly road safety is about road safety. I mean, it's a brilliant statement. And it's interesting that the association, this is the Association of Road Safety, I'll tell you in a minute, did come forward with proposals based on evidence that in some circumstances 10 miles an hour, let alone 5 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour is an appropriate speed in terms of roads. Oh boy. So yeah, according to this as well, the evidence has shown the rollout of the 20-mile speed limit has been brilliant and has been welcomed by the people of Wales. So I'd like to hear from you if that is true. And what do you think about lowering the speed limit potentially to 5 miles an hour in some places? Because that's safe. Well, of course it's safer. A parked car is safer, isn't it? Like I said before. A car that doesn't move at all is safe. I don't understand. So that's what they're talking about. Let alone 10 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour is appropriate in terms of road speeds. So in Wales, and a lot of people go, well, that's just Wales. That won't affect me. Yeah. Well, when Sadiq Khan introduced 20 miles an hour in London, everyone went, that's just London. That's just their problem. Let them deal with it. Where have you got? Everywhere's got 20 miles an hour now. So don't be too gleeful about it only being in Wales, because you know what Labour will do. You know what they'll do, because the road safety statistics will be amazing. Nobody's been injured. Nobody's been hurt. No accidents. Of course not. They're doing 5 miles an hour. You can walk faster. So they'll be able to say 0 accidents. And then, right, well, we're doing it now. Sadiq Khan's probably already having the signs made as we speak. Bonkers. What's it like to be a driver in Britain today? Do give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. Like I said, especially in Wales. 0344 499 1000. Just to let you know, those calls are charged at a national rate. And you can text the word talk and your message to 87222. Don't go anywhere. If you're a fan of Mission Impossible, we have done the impossible. And that's coming up next.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you. And with me is Agent Josh Rom. With his, are they filming as well?
Evening, Commander Hosken.
Yeah.
If you're watching on YouTube, good evening, Agent Rom, reporting for duty.
Well, you've been busy, that is for sure.
I have.
I did
been
send you out.
Very busy.
I sent you out on a mission, which really should have been impossible, to get these fabulous guests for us, but you did it.
I think I might have achieved the impossible. So as I mentioned last week, the cast and crew of Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, were in London. First things first, I attended the global premiere of the new film. Now, Petrie, when I say this is the biggest premiere I think I have ever seen, ever, this was it. I've never seen a bigger red carpet. You had 2 full-size planes, one of which, the yellow plane.
Where was this?
In Leicester Square.
They got planes into Leicester Square?
They got the planes
I used to
into
work
Leicester
in Leicester
Square.
I don't know how they did that.
Yeah, so, and these 2, like, little aeroplanes, one of which was actually used in the movie. The yellow one was used in the movie.
Oh, the biplane.
Yes, they flew in grass from South Africa to be part of the red carpet. And then there was, everywhere you looked, there was a screen, and if not a screen, then a poster, and if not a poster, then a prop, and if not a prop, something was going on, and if not something interactive going on, then boom, rows upon rows of fans, and then in the centre there was this kind of circular, again, this circular barrier just with all different screens on it. I have never seen a big red carpet like it, almost to the point where, you know, I've been on loads of these red carpets, I've done loads of global premieres. Even I was ever so slightly intimidated when I walked on this, because it felt big, it felt grand, it felt like the red carpet, the premiere itself, was almost this huge production. And actually, the funniest thing is, because we'll speak to Tom later, but Tom is literally like, oh yeah, I wish we could have flown in to Leicester Square.
I mean, I love the fact you're just now Tom.
Oh, well, it's not even Tom. I should really call him TC.
Yeah, you
like,
should,
that's his
really.
nickname. Like, I should really be like, yeah, so TC was like...
TC and me.
TC and me. TC was like, oh, I wish we could just fly these planes in. And I'm like, yeah, TC, thinking, oh. I mean, Tom...
Have you been to London? You'll get a parking ticket if he's not careful.
I got to tell you that Tom actually is very... TC is very he has a lot of attachment to London. He partly lives actually in the UK as well, and London, as he says, has always been a big part of filming Mission Impossible. Parts of London have been featured in every single movie, bearing in mind this is an international movie. Hint hint, nudge nudge. I think we all know what I'm talking there. Not going to say the big T word. Should we just move on to the interviews?
Let's do that. I'm really excited.
We've got a lot to get through. So first things first, I spoke to Christopher McQuarrie, who was the director of Mission Impossible, and actually he's directed, I believe, the last 4 Mission Impossibles as well. He's a regular collaborator now with Tom Cruise. He and Tom have other films in the works now. Tom is going to be doing a new picture deal with Warner Brothers as well, and he's going to be working on films with Christopher there. It's a non-exclusive deal, so he's still going to be with Paramount too. So he is just one of the busiest men, and if he's not filming, then he's working. That's the thing with TC. He never stops, and he absolutely loves it. But I spoke to Chris McQuarrie, and what I like so much about The Final Reckoning is that although it was big and grand and you had these breathtaking stunts and these huge, beautiful sequences, you also had, there was a real element of emotional heart in this film, almost like you felt that this was the film that was tying all the different strands of this franchise together, different hints of all the different stories all throughout the years, all throughout the 2 decades that Mission Impossible, well, really 3 decades almost, that Mission Impossible has been on air, well, I say on air, in the cinema and in the universe. So I asked Chris, is this really the most emotional film out of the entire franchise?
I would think so, yes. I'm biased because I directed it, but yes, I think so, and that was very much the intention.
And also, when it comes to Tom's stunts, I remember talking to you last year about, or a few years ago, about Dead Reckoning, driving the bike off the cliff. Once again, you guys have just pushed it to the next level. The underwater sequence was sublime. Were you actually this time around even more terrified for Tom?
Not so much during the submarine sequence as much as I was during the aerial sequence. That was really the underwater sequence. It was less about terrified for Tom. They're just really worried for him. It's very physically punishing. But the aerial sequence, and particularly the end of the aerial sequence, you know what I'm talking about. That was hairy.
And actually, when it comes to the aerial sequences, because you've got to get so many different angles, is it tough for a director to actually achieve it? And then kind of, if you like go back into the editing suite and then you're like, oh, we should have got more, or is it tough to direct those sequences?
It's very tough. You hit the nail on the head, rigging the cameras on that plane. You can only put 2 cameras on the plane at a time. And you're talking about 23, maybe 26 different camera positions on that plane. And I could go on for an hour about how challenging the rigging is, and then how dangerous that is in terms of the aerodynamics of the plane with somebody on the wing. It was a huge engineering accomplishment.
Absolutely fascinating. I could have listened to him for that hour.
Well, you can see why him and Tom collaborate so well, because they're both so passionate about what they do. And someone else who's really passionate about what she does, of course, is Hannah Waddingham.
Love.
Now, she doesn't...
I'm in love with her.
Well, who isn't?
Yeah,
well,
true.
In fact, I'm just going to just say this. This was one of the funniest and best red carpet interviews
she's amazing.
I think I've ever done here. I'm just going to cue... Let's just go to Hannah. You are looking at just... This is jaw-dropping. When I first saw you walk onto the red carpet, I literally, I had to take an intake of breath. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, that feeds my soul when I'm so tired.
I love this. And the thing is, the last time I spoke to you was around Christmas last year when you were launching your Apple TV Plus show.
Yes.
You were singing, you were dancing, you were like, I want to play.
And Mama is exhausted.
Because I was going to say, almost you could kind of tell you were tired in this film because those steely eyes, I was like, oh, those eyes can cut. Oh, you could swear, we could bleep.
Don't around with Admiral Neely. Absolutely not. He's lucky that she helps him ultimately, because she's not impressed when he first comes on.
And I got to ask, how on earth do you just balance everything from doing your Apple TV Plus show to Mission Impossible to everything else, to Lilo and Stitch and maybe even to Ted Lasso? How do you balance it all?
Because it's all so much fun and it's such a privilege and it's what we all want to do, and to do it at this level. That's why I said yes to this. I'd literally arrived on the Saturday from Sydney shooting for 4 months on Fall Guy, and then the next day I was flying out to go to an aircraft carrier in the middle of the ocean to join Mission, meeting Tom and Chris McQuarrie in a Black Hawk helicopter to fly out onto a moving fighter carrier. Who does that?
You do.
Him. You know, so just being in his orbit, you know, when I'm such a geek about all these things as well, being with those two guys is just incredible. You know, we can all sleep when we're dead.
Yeah, yes, we can.
I don't know, whatever these two do together is always sensational, so, you know, we have to wait and see. And isn't that exciting, just waiting to see what they do next together? Because I know there's more in the pipeline, you know.
I'm gonna photobomb here because this woman is not even real. I mean, she's the most unreal real woman I've ever met, and we bonded recently, and not only is she beautiful, but she's smart and sexy, and you know what? You deserve your own battleship for real. She's the boss. Listen, I want to enlist after watching her.
I mean, could he be any hotter if he tried? We just need to have a moment for Isai Morales, thank you.
Yeah, she had the most glorious career on the West End. And I know a lot of people who've worked on the West End, and a lot of them are my friends, and that she is their shining example of that transferring from that West End to the big time, to the movies. And I think Ted Lasso was her breakthrough.
It was.
But she is extraordinary. She's such an incredible talent.
And what's amazing is actually she's going to have 2 films competing against each other, because of course she has a voice part in Lilo and Stitch as well for Disney. So she's going to have 2 films in the cinema at the same time. But of course, let's also go to what our first of our 2 big sit-downs. So later on we've got Haley Atwell and Greg Tarzan Davis. But first and foremost, I sat down with Pom Clementif, who plays the assassin Paris, and someone who's been in a lot of Mission Impossible films, Simon Pegg, of course, Shaun the Dead, Hot
Love him in
Fuzz, everything. Yeah. We just love Simon Pegg. And so this was a real moment for him, because we don't know if it is the final film or not. There may or may not be others in the works. But I asked Simon, what was his out of all the films, what was the moment of Benji Dunn, his character, that he was the most proud of?
Oh, I mean, I could pick you a moment, or several moments from each film, you know. Obviously, I really like the way, you know, because when Benji first appeared, after he became a field agent in Ghost Protocol, he was so desperate to wear a mask. He was excited to be in the field. He's all kind of happy, and you know, it's not until things get serious that he realizes that it's not that kind of job.
It's not all it's cracked up to be.
But McHugh very, very carefully waited for my first proper mask pull. I had one in Rogue Nation, but it was an imaginary one. My first one was I got to play Wolf Blitzer, the legendary CNN anchor. I think this film, you know, because this is the culmination of all Benji's experiences coming to the fore, and it was great to play Benji, you know, doing what he does in this film, having come such a long way from being just a kind of little schlubby guy in a lab, you know.
Because one of my favourite moments came in Ghost Protocol, when it was like, if it's blue, it's glue. If it's red, you're dead. And I think that just signifies what Benji does so well with that kind of quick comic timing. And actually kind of both your characters, there is like very much moments where, for both of you, your characters do kind of cut through the tension. So I kind of want to know, how easy is it to make Tom Cruise laugh? Is it easy, or is he just laser focused like Ethan Hunt 24/7?
It's so easy.
It's super easy. We have so much fun on set. We're like joking and like right before the takes and all that.
He's the first one to go.
He's very goofy too.
And he's mischievous because he'll. If things aren't too much like we've got to get our day, and so we've got to concentrate, and you know you don't want to keep the crew waiting. If things are going well and we've got a little time, then it gets silly. And he has this thing. He's done it for years. Whenever we do our coverage, when it's on me over his shoulder, and it's called What's a Dirty One, so you can see a bit of Tom's shoulder, he'll just move to block my shot.
Yeah, he was doing that.
He does it every time.
What I did see, I saw at Cannes, there was a moment on the red carpet where you and Tom had like, you shared a really nice hug, and you felt in that moment, it was like, because we don't know if this is going to be the last one or not, but it very much feels for you, and it also as well for you, Pom, that there is like a real emotion behind this. Yeah,
you know, we've been through a lot together, and both on screen and off screen. We started this film, or rather its predecessor, at the height of the pandemic. We spent a lot of time together.
Yeah, we traveled from country to country.
Yeah.
I love this. And just my last thing, a one-word answer. You're, of course, involved in Marvel. Who makes you work harder, Tom Cruise for Mission Impossible or Kevin Feige for Marvel?
Oh, my God. It's so different. It's such different projects. But, of course, there's an intensity with the Mission Impossible movies, and a passion, and just a training, and just, like, you know, a fire that is unprecedented.
Yes, I just realised she plays Mantis, doesn't she?
Yes, in Marvel.
Yes, that's right. I love Simon. But I love that question. Is it easy to make Tom Cruise laugh? Because obviously it just is, and that's nice to know. That's a bit of humanity, isn't it?
You can actually also see on the red carpet, as you'll see later, he does love smiling. He does like to have a little giggle. Doesn't take himself that seriously. As seriously as you might think.
Is good. He's gone up in my estimation. That's good to know. Josh and I will be back in a moment with some more exclusives for you from Mission Impossible: The Last Reckoning.
The Final Reckoning.
The Final Reckoning. There we go. It won't be.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk, and it is Petrie here with you, and with me is Josh Rom with our exclusives from the new Mission Impossible film, The Final Reckoning, and this is our special dedicated half hour to that. So there's still more to come.
There is still plenty more to come, and we're going to get right onto it. So, of course, Hayley Atwell was one of the big stars that joined the franchise for Mission Impossible 7, Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 1, as it was called then. Now it's just known as Dead Reckoning now. This was meant to be the Dead Reckoning Part 2, but then they changed the name. And you see that, seeing the film, you'll know exactly why. But I sat down with her and her co-star Greg Tarzan Davis, who plays Agent Theo Degas, who started off as a kind of US agent, kind of hunting Ethan to kind of arrest him, bringing in to custody. He then kind of becomes a member of the IMF, the Impossible Mission Force team. I sat down with both of them. Now, a big sequence here, they filmed in the Arctic, and I asked Hayley and Greg, I said, is the Arctic really as cold as it looks?
Minus 40 degrees. The first time that we went on set, I couldn't see anyone because everyone was sort of covered up and their goggles. I had to guess who people were, but I could tell it was McHugh because all of his facial hair had sort of merged into one big icicle, and he looked a bit like a walrus, didn't he? Human walrus. But I have to say, I loved it. I thrived there. It was definitely my favourite environment to be in. I'm terrible in heat. I lose my sense of humour. I'm just looking for a cool, dark spot to curl up in until the sun passes. So for me, this was like, you're so invigorated. It propels you to keep moving. I like that.
I agree with her. It was the most beautiful place ever, but I'm the opposite. When it's cold, I shut down and I'm like frozen. I remember we were in the tent and everybody said, hey, let's go outside and make snow angels. And I'm like, no. Why would you do that if they didn't call action? And then, you know, when we're filming those things, because there's no real blizzard in there. So McHugh would set up a fan and he would say, you know, we would all be lined up and they would just start the freaking fan and they would throw ice in it so your face is just, and you have to take off your stuff because in your gloves and you're just being obliterated by the snow. It's like, shit.
Do you remember? Well, I remember watching Pom's nose become almost transparent. Mm-hmm. It was and like glow, like it was made of sort of kind of glow in the dark wax.
Like wax, yeah.
Yeah, and they had to stop the cameras because she was developing frost nip, which is a precursor to frostbite. Mm-hmm. So it was, we suffer for our art, don't we?
So we hope you enjoy.
Well, this is the thing. Tom puts his life on the line. You guys can say we did that too.
Yeah, you don't sign up to Mission a Bit Difficult.
I love that. You don't sign up. No, it really is Mission Impossible. Mm-hmm. But Hayley, I want to come to you next because Grace in this instalment, she's far less cloak and daggers. She's more helpful. She really comes into her own. And we also see that kind of caring, intimate side to her. I love the scene after the rescue of the submarine with Grace and Ethan in the compression chamber. For you, how was it exploring that more intimate side to Grace? Because you can see, like, you and Tom genuinely cared for each other.
Yeah, I think so much of these films are about the natural evolution of chemistry between who you're working with, but also what the audience seem to be wanting. We're always looking at the frame going, do they want this? Do they want that? What is the most exciting version of this? And what I really liked is that, particularly in the first one, she wasn't driven with a romantic agenda. She wasn't an object of desire. It wasn't led with a kind of a sexual chemistry or film between them. It was pressure and circumstance kept pushing them together. He needed her, she needed him, but wouldn't want to admit it, and spent the whole movie trying to get away from him. And now I think it's that thing where she's like, oh no, you've made me care about you. And the pain or I guess the cost of caring or belonging to someone or a group of people is the fear of losing them. So the stakes for her in this movie become much higher.
Mm-hmm.
But like, just in that moment, you can see there was such lovely, genuine affection between you and Tom, and that just came across on screen as well.
Oh, good. I think again, filming something as intense as this has to has to be led with a sense of friendship and trust, and it's all for the sake of working together for the audience. So finding out like ways of ideas at work, you throw them out, you try something else, you leave your ego at the door and you go to work. And I respect his approach so much, and he's a dear friend to all of us, and I think he's masterful at making people feel safe and secure and a part of it, and demystifies the process of filmmaking from every single department. And I think that sort of, it's a lovely thing for me to go, you're the female in an action franchise, and yet you're not one thing to someone. You're not one thing to the protagonist. You're sisterly, motherly, romantic, colleagues. There's equality there. There's intellectual stimulation there. There's a physical match. There's more nuances there going on.
And for my final question, watching this film, not just at Tom's stunts, but, for example, the Doomsday Vault sequence, my heart was in my mouth more times than I care to remember. Just quickly, is it that intense on set, or is it more calm?
It's more calm. It's more calm on set. We have fun. You know, the only time I think that it gets intense is when Tom is doing those stunts, and we're like, okay, are you gonna die, or are we gonna see you? Are we gonna be able to hug you when you come back? You know, from flying in the air. But on set, man, it's a light atmosphere, and we love to have fun. We love to play music, dance. Even on set, we'll play games, especially around the cast chairs and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. Brilliant. Now, let's get to TC.
Yeah, TC. Last time we spoke to him was 2 years ago for the premiere of Dead Reckoning Part 1. Let's take a look at this.
It was a beautiful moment last night to be able to share it with our cast and crew, so that they know what they all accomplished.
And do you ever get scared because some of these stunts are really quite breathtaking?
Well, the thing is, it's not that I don't get scared, it's I don't mind being scared. I don't mind being a little nervous.
So that was then?
That was then, and I spoke to him about that now. Now, Tom, the last...
I like the glasses.
I thank you, inspired by you.
I see it.
Now,
Band's going.
now, last time I spoke to you was on the red carpet of Dead Reckoning, and you told me that you don't mind being a little scared, you don't mind being a little nervous. So with that in mind, how do you actually go and decide what it is that you want to do? Do you fit the story around the stunts, or do you fit the stunts into a wider story?
It happens both ways. Sometimes you come up with motion. I look at geography, I look at buildings, and you can see what stories they tell. So you have to take it from spaces and see what story can you tell in that space. And that's kind of what we do, back and forth. But there's certain things where I'm like, oh, that'd be a lot of fun, like the wing walking in this. I really wanted to do that. And submarine, McHugh really, we talked about submarines, and he wanted to do a submarine sequence. So that's kind of what we did. Yeah, I fly airplanes and helicopters, and I jump out of them, and I kind of do a lot of the same stuff that I do in these movies I do in my life. Kind of learn a skill, and then I apply it to movies.
I love it. Just a standard day, and I love that you got back on the aeroplane as well.
It was beautiful to get back on that airplane. I love it. I'm looking at these things. I wish they'd let me land it here. We had to bust these things in or truck it in. It was fun.
Yeah, they could have dropped him from a helicopter, couldn't they, into Leicester Square?
I will say there is a rumour before every Tom Cruise premiere that he's going to make this big dramatic entrance involving a helicopter. I kid you not. I've covered 3 Tom Cruise premieres. Before every one, there's always a rumour of a helicopter. And funny thing is
Queen
on this
did
red...
it.
On this red
Queen
carpet,
did it.
exactly.
She did it for the Olympics.
But that was for a stadium. Leicester Square isn't quite stadium level big.
That's true. I mean, look, Tom Cruise. I don't. He looked great there, actually.
He did.
He looked better than he did 2 years ago.
Well, I still think he looked good 2 years ago. But
he's 64 years old.
He is, and still doing all these incredible stunts. It's unbelievable.
62.
62, that's it. But the interesting thing is about Tom, you ask him stuff about an actor, he'll talk about it, but he's so passionate about films. You ask him stuff about producing and the technical elements, he'll go on and on and on.
Yeah.
And that was the strategy this time.
Yeah, it's like Sam, who does the buttons here, start talking to him about technical. I think he shares a birthday with Tom Cruise. Nothing else, none of the fame, fortune or looks, but he does share a birthday.
Poor Sam, poor Sam.
I'm in trouble now, he's going to just take the microphone from me at some point. Josh Rom, that was brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. The Final Reckoning, Mission Impossible, is in cinemas.
This week.
This week, go and see it. Oh, amazing. Thank you. Right, coming up, it's the newspapers.
I can announce this government will begin the biggest sustained increase in defence spending since the end of the Cold War. We will deliver our commitment to spend 2.5% of GDP on defence, but we will bring it forward so we reach that level in 2027.
The answer from European capitals has been as resounding as it is clear. We are in an era of rearmament to respond to the short-term urgency to act and to support Ukraine, but also to address the long-term need to take on more responsibility for our own European security.
On Saturday, we also agreed a new £2.2 billion loan for Ukraine, backed not by the British taxpayer, but by the profits from frozen Russian assets. It is my pleasure to bring from His Majesty the King a letter. He sends his best wishes and his regards, of course, but he also asked me to bear this letter and bring it to you. So can I present the letter from the King to you?
Thank you very much. Am I supposed to read it right now?
Yeah, please do.
I will do.
I've got to tell him what your reaction is, so I need to know. I need to know.
He is a great gentleman. A great, great gentleman. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time, and he better not be right. Well, I just think he should be more appreciative, because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us, because as you know, that's right there, that's the border.
What kind of diplomacy, JD, you are speaking about? What do you mean?
I'm talking about the kind of diplomacy that's going to end the destruction of your country.
Yes, but if you are not
Mr. President, with respect, I think it's disrespectful for you to come into the Oval Office and try to litigate this in front of the American media.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good to have your company, and with me for the next hour is John Boothman, political correspondent of the Sunday Times in Scotland. Hi there, John, are you a Mission Impossible fan?
Oh, a wee bit, yeah. Yeah, I like all of these kind of films.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Yeah. Really looking forward to seeing that, actually. It'd be great. Now, before we kick off with the papers, I want to talk to you about... I don't know if you're a driver. Do you drive around Scotland?
Yes, I do, yeah.
You do.
Yeah.
Have you heard the latest from Wales? Well, they're looking to reduce the speed limit in certain areas to 5 miles an hour.
You'd be as well just walking. I mean, I don't understand this... you know, we spend all of our lives in this country talking about economic growth and improving the economy. I think Wales has already got a 20 mile an hour limit. I don't know how extensive that is.
It's fairly extensive.
And it just kind of slows everything up, at least that's what I think anyway. And it's not the kind of thing that's going to promote economic growth. It's you know, we talk about all these things all the time and then end up in a position where we do the opposite.
I mean, yeah, it defeats logic. I mean, I was saying earlier on, it's really not going to be long before they make us get a man with a red flag to walk in front of the cars. I mean, you know, 5 miles an hour, that can't be good for the car. How do you even regulate 5 miles an hour? I mean, I don't know where that is on my on my speedo. How do you even... You'd have to be watching that all the time to make sure you didn't go above it and not watching the roads. I don't understand what these fanatics are going on about. You literally have people in mobility scooters going faster than the cars.
Look, I can understand, you know, slower speeds and roads. For example, where I stay next door to a school. And there's kids there in the morning and there's kids there at the end of the day, so you could understand why you might have restrictions of that nature there. 5 miles an hour, I mean, is that a road safety measure? What's the purpose of it?
Because it will... I mean, if all cars had to move at 5 miles an hour, right, there would be no accidents, and they would then go, see, 0 accidents at 5 miles an hour. But a parked car, it doesn't create any accidents either. So why don't we just say you can't just park the car and then you can't move it? I mean, this is just getting absolutely ridiculous. And people need their cars, they want their cars. And I wonder if there's something else behind this.
I can't think what it would be, but I mean, you know, again, you know, I stay, what do I stay, 8 miles or something from the centre of Edinburgh. If the buses that I use were to go at 5 miles an hour, I mean, seriously, how long would it take me to get to my work and come back from my work? I don't, sometimes I think we've got really, really muddled policy objectives and a whole load of things, you know, and this sounds like one of them too. We need to decide what's the most important thing and take it from there. If they're saying road safety is more important than, you know, speeding up traffic on the roads in order that, you know, things can get moving in the roads, people can get to work, maybe we could keep cars off the road in a different way, then somebody should explain that. But we just get these sort of arbitrary things laid down, and everybody's expected to obey them. But, you know, people have got to get from A to B in order that society can function. The slower that takes, the worse it is, I think, by and large, for everybody. And I think, in terms of a road safety measure, does it really save that many more lives if you were, you know, in towns and villages? And, you know, Scotland has got whole expanses of countryside all over the place, right? You know, apart from the central belt, I think Scotland's got, what, 1/3 of the landmass of the UK and 1/10 of the population. Are we really proposing such draconian, you know, measures, speed measures in whole areas of, you know, what is effectively rural countryside? I think you're right. People just go a wee bit mad.
I mean, yeah, and it is just an attack, isn't it? It's an attack on drivers. They're hell-bent on getting us out of our cars, although I don't think the motor industry is that keen on that idea. It literally, these zealots are confusing me, because like you, I just don't, just shut up. Why are you doing this? I mean, and for those people who think, oh, it's just going to be Wales, we already know that London kicked off the 20 miles an hour, and now it's pretty much everywhere. I don't know if it is in Scotland yet, but you know, there will be cities right now in Scotland who are going, yeah, we'll drop it to 20 miles an hour as well.
It's creeping in. I mean, yeah. the next local authority from where I live in Midlothian, they're proposing a big expansion of their 20 mile an hour zone. Now, that's a local authority that really consists of a series of small towns and villages. And actually, you could perhaps see, as I say, at certain times of the day, that being important in some of the towns, right? But once you get out of the towns, right, it seems to me a bit silly. Well,
and also, I mean, I go home every night when I'm working at 1 o'clock in the morning, right, and across London. There's barely any car. I mean, there are still cars around. We're a 24-hour city, but it's 20 miles an hour. And all these dead roads, all these empty, and a lot of my journey is on the A40. Yeah, A40, which is a 3-lane, you know, it's a massive road, goes past King's Cross, I don't know if you know it, goes past, you know, Euston and all that. It's a huge road, and you're dawdling along at 20 miles an hour. And it just doesn't seem to make any sense. Why don't they time it and say, look, it's 20 miles an hour until midnight? Or but they don't trust us. They treat us like children.
Again, you know, as you say, I think there's a lot of zealotry around this. But for me, it's just a whole load of confusing policy objectives. I mean, we have a thing here which kind of drives me mad. One of the things that's happened in Scotland is that all under 22-year-old kids get free bus travel. Which on the face of it sounds great, except for the fact that kids who used to walk half a mile and 3 bus stops from the school every morning and back at the end of the day now get the bus. So at peak hours it makes it difficult for people who are travelling to their work and stuff, right, to get seats on the bus. And in addition to that, you know, and this is where my stuff about policy objectives comes in, you know, we talk all the time about the huge increase in obesity in children. And then what happens is we create this policy measure that probably encourages that rather than discourages that. And it's like, does anybody think these things through?
No. I mean, that's the thing. There is no joined-up thinking. There really isn't any joined-up thinking. I mean, there was some suggestion that across London they would start to look at 10 miles an hour. That is to get us used to self-driving cars, because when cars start self-driving, they will not be able to go more than 10 miles an hour. So, and they'll need everything else to be slow on the roads. But I mean, and also, John, just talk about sucking the joy out of everything, right? It's nice to drive. It's one of those rites of passage. It's an important part of your independence. It's something I see as being incredibly important, and I love it. I mean, they're just sucking the joy out of it.
Yeah, but there is also a point that in whole spheres of the country, and perhaps not in the cities, in London you've got a great mass transit system in the underground, you've got a pretty extensive bus system. If you live in a place that's, you know, semi-rural or rural, people need their cars.
Yeah.
And they need their cars to get from A to B in any shape or form, whether it be shopping, whether it be commerce or business. And these kind of restrictions just seem to me to be utterly excessive and not thought through.
No, it's just a control. It's nanny statism again, in my view, and they just like to control us and push us around. But anyway, look, let's have a look at the New York Times, shall we, John? They've crammed a lot of stories on the on the front page again. Let's have a look at Trump's shift on Ukraine. US backs off Putin. Splitting with allies. I mean, he's been worse than useless, I think, Donald Trump. I think he's caused more problems with these peace talks than anybody possibly could have done, because he has capitulated to Putin. And the last 2-hour call they had, they clearly all they talked about was doing trade deals and not about a peace. And now Trump's bored of it.
Well, look, I mean, the story's a really interesting story. I think we've kind of heard some of this, but remember when Trump was elected, or before he was elected, he promised that this was going to get sorted out as soon as he got elected.
Before he was inaugurated, he said.
That's it. He would phone up Putin, him and Putin would sort it all out, and it would all be fixed, except for the fact that that's not what's happened at all. He's ended up playing to the Russians. Putin looks so far like the victor. Now, what he's doing, and what the New York Times is suggesting he's doing, is that he's going to do as he's threatened, which is to walk away and leave it to Europe and everybody else to try and fix. Now, that's a very, very dangerous position for any of his allies. Do we still consider ourselves his allies? We probably do. But it means more pressure on the Europeans to sort it out. It means less resources available to the Ukrainians, because the Americans, by and large, over the last 3 years have been supporting the Ukrainians, and that's a problem, a big, big problem for
John,
everyone.
What everybody seems to forget, and what Donald Trump is willfully either ignoring or has no knowledge of, is that protecting Ukraine from Russia was part of an agreement that was signed by America if Ukraine got rid of their nuclear weapons. This was an agreement. All America is doing, and I'm sick and tired of hearing, oh, why are we stepping into this? This has got nothing to do with us. It has got something to do with you, because your predecessors signed a document to say, if you get rid of those nuclear weapons, Ukraine, and we need them gone because there are so many of them, Ukraine had more nuclear weapons, I think, than Russia at the time, then we will always protect you from Russia. That was the agreement. And now he's going, it's got nothing to do with me. It makes me so angry that the history is just being ignored. It's just not even entering the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that entirely, but I suppose the Americans would say in a very American way, that was then and this is now. I mean, the people who are really threatened and scared and angry, and I think we've said this before, are the people in Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Georgia, Moldova, Poland, a whole series of countries that used to be in the ambit of the old Soviet Union, and people in the northern states of Europe like Finland and Sweden and and Denmark, places where traditionally, you know, they've not had big armies, they've not had to spend a lot of money in defence, for example. Now, it means, of course, and we've seen this being played out already, that everybody's going to have to spend much more money in defence. I saw a story yesterday saying Trump was suggesting that maybe by the end of the decade that Britain had to get up to, I think, 3% of its GDP being spent on defence. And, you know, this is part of the way that Trump is changing the agenda and dictating the world. I mean, one of the things that struck me a bit looking at the New York Times front page that I see there on the screen is that there's 7 main stories, I think, on the front page, and 6 of them are about Trump or things that Trump has done. And that is absolutely fascinating for me. He's just like flooded the agenda of the mainstream media, and we're talking about, I mean, every week that we sit on this programme and any other programme, we're talking about Donald Trump.
Unfortunately, but you know, that historical agreement that Trump signed, or that America signed, to always protect Ukraine from Russia if they got rid of those nuclear weapons, you cannot trust a country that turns its back on an agreement. I think any day that we cannot trust America anymore to do anything, because that was a document that was so important to the security of the world, and he's just ripped it up like he's doing with the Constitution. It makes me so angry. He's proving that nobody can do business with Trump. Nobody can trust him. No one can trust America. And that comes into play here on another story on the front page. Weeks of secret coordination between Washington and Doha. This gift apparently wasn't a gift. They asked for it. Trump wanted one of their Pretty Palace planes, and he asked for it. And there were negotiations. And then he goes, oh, what a shock. I've been gifted a $400 million plane.
Well, he's accepted it today, apparently. I mean, I think this is an absolutely fascinating story.
Disgusting.
That basically suggesting that Trump behind the scenes was very unhappy that he was having to fly around in a plane that George W. Bush had flown around in 20 years ago, and it was time for a new one. And
his ego.
Now what's happened, of course, is that he appears to have set a whole series of quite impossible demands, right, to have this plane transformed to really the state that he wants it in, or the state that it needs to be in order to protect the president. And that they want this done apparently in 7 months. But it's an absolutely incredible story. It's I think the story in the New York Times there says it's the most expensive gift that's ever been given in the history of American foreign policy. It's a great story.
And also it's against the Constitution. It literally says in the Constitution that no president shall accept a gift from a king or a president. I mean, but yeah, I mean, there's also been some talk in the back corridors that secret documents were swapped as well in order to get this plane gifted to him. And then he says, no, it's not to me, it's to America, except I'm going to keep it when I leave. I mean, just I don't know. I mean, honestly, if I came to you with a comedy sketch like that, you'd go away. Come on, Hosken. That's rubbish. It could never happen. It could never happen. What else have we got there? Tensions climb as Israel's allies condemn its escalation in Gaza. We've got that story in the front there as well. And that's interesting because of how quiet America is being.
Yeah, well, again, Britain, Canada and France all sabre-rattling round about the Israelis because they are talking about expanding the war. The story doesn't say very much. In fact, does it say anything at all about starvation of the Palestinians in Gaza? It talks about, Britain suspending trade talks with the Israelis as some kind of punishment. But
they don't care.
Look, like Trump, and dare I say this, the Israelis are just sticking 2 fingers up to everybody else in the world because they don't particularly give a care about what anybody thinks.
No, they really, really don't. And it, the days of having a little bit of shame or a little bit of empathy or a little bit of caring for another human being, I think that, again, those days, along with with truth, are well and truly behind us. It's heartbreaking. John, let's take a quick break before we start on the UK papers.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, it is great to have your company, and I'm thrilled to say I'm in the company of John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. Let's have a look at the Times for Thursday, and it's another Trump story. Trump ambushes South African president over white victims. It seems to me akin to being called to the headmaster's office currently, going to the Oval Office. I don't know why any world leader would bother.
Yes, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, known in the past for being involved in negotiating the release of Nelson Mandela, president of a very troubled country where clearly there are lots of problems. The South Africans themselves talk about the hounding and the murder, in fact, of some white farmers as part of a huge crime problem that they're trying to solve. Donald Trump painting a very different picture. I mean, I suppose he did a Zelensky on him.
He did,
the same kind of lecture that Zelensky had a few weeks ago when he turned up at the Oval Office. So I think Ramaphosa was, the suggestion seemed to be he was expecting that he would get some kind of discussion round about this, but, you know, being dressed down in the way that he was, that just seems to be the hallmark of Trump. You know, as you rightly say, anybody who's going to the White House must be worried about this in future. Bother. I can remember when Starmer went a few weeks ago, that I think there was some concern, you know, about what might have been said to him at the time. But quite incredible the way that this gets played out on live television and the public gaze, when, you know, in the past, you know, any of the diplomatic niceties that existed are just thrown out the window.
I mean, look, some people will say, look, it's really good that Donald Trump says what, you know, other people are thinking, and that he will talk to these people in that way. But and look, there's no argument there. Some things that are going on in South Africa do need to be pointed out and do need to be dealt with. But to do it so publicly, that's what I find sickening. It's like, you know, I wouldn't want my boss to tell me off, not that Trump is Ramaphosa's boss, but in front of the whole room. If you've got something to say to me, take me to another room and then say, look, what is really going on? That's the diplomatic thing to do. But there are no diplomatic niceties, as you say, and everybody's, you know, up for this treatment.
Sometimes it's just terribly opinionated and ill-informed.
Yeah, it really is.
Which is also part of the problem.
And hypocritical. Hypocritical. Oh, I was going to say something very rude then. That was coming out of his mouth, Trump's mouth today, going, I can't believe you had these stadiums where somebody's saying kill white farmers. And I'm going, hang on a minute, you had 100,000 people in a stadium talking about how Mexicans were all murderers and rapists. I mean, the hypocrisy is just extraordinary.
One would have thought that, given the state of things that are happening in the planet, that the sort of language that was being used, I mean, I don't think Trump used the genocide word in the conversations. I think that was just implied, right? But, you know, the contrast between that sort of behaviour today and Netanyahu being welcomed in the way that he has been in the White House when, you know, he's regarded internationally, even amongst, as we heard earlier in the story in the New York Times, some of his allies as being, you know, the fount of a lot of the problems in the Middle East. And Netanyahu, of course, is now saying, according again to a story I read in the Times of Israel earlier on this evening, that the escalation of the war in Gaza is now about carrying out the policies that Trump advocated when he talked about the relocation of its residents.
Absolutely, it is now the clearing out of the Strip and of ethnically cleansing the Strip, and that is policy. That is policy, and it's illegal. But like you said, he's been emboldened by those conversations with Donald Trump. Let's move on to the other story, which is I think this was bound to happen at some point. You and I've talked about it many times, and this is the winter fuel payments that were taken away from pensioners as an arbitrary political decision within days of taking power by Labour. Pensioners, there is now a U-turn, and pensioners to wait a year after winter fuel U-turn.
I mean, a monumental mistake. You know, here was the government, and again, we've talked about this before, hugely well prepared for an election, completely unprepared for government. They made this huge mistake 3 weeks after they were elected. You know, it's caused them so much political trouble. And I was thinking about this again today. I think it's £200 for single pensioners and £300 for, you know, a pensioner household. You know, that's like, what, less than £4 or £6 a week. You can hardly buy a loaf and 2 pints of milk, right, for that price in a week. And look at the political damage that it's caused Labour. I spent half the day today in the Hamilton constituency, where there's a Scottish Parliament by-election in 2 weeks' time. Reform are doing very well. Labour in the past would have been expected, well, certainly this time last year, of winning this seat probably quite comfortably against the SNP. And the suggestion seems to be that Labour actually might even come third in this by-election, which is in 2 weeks' time. But look, we'll wait and see how that plays out. I sat with the Labour candidate today and with Anas Sarwar, the leader of Scottish Labour, and they were quite candid and said the thing that's coming up in the doors is the winter fuel payment. Exactly what happened in the local council elections in England, where Labour got absolutely hammered. This is the thing that's causing all the jitters, that plus disability and welfare cuts that might come in the spending review.
I was just going to say that, actually, John. I was just going to ask. I don't think this is a gift to pensioners. I think this is a gift to the Labour hardcore. I think this U-turn on winter fuel has got really nothing to do with compassion or caring about old people. This is to do with paying forward before the cuts come to disability and to social services and to things like that, and also to the change in tone over immigration. I think this is to placate those Labour backbenchers who are getting pretty annoyed with Labour.
Well, I think, look, I think it's a whole combination of factors, including that, to be fair. I mean, I think they had the life frightened out of them by what happened in the council elections. You know, they've had a really rough first year. I mean, I'm kind of more generally of the view that actually the last 2 weeks, apart from, in fact, the inflation figures that have come out today, have actually been the best couple of weeks that Starmer's had, between the trade deal with America, the trade deal with India, the better relationship with the EU. He's now done the winter fuel payment. You know, Labour backbenchers and others have now got things that they can point to that at least they can say are happening and are being done. Look, it might not be fantastic, but it's better than it's been. So I think that's quite interesting. The problem that Starmer now has is that, you know, I think that a lot of people have already made their minds up about Starmer, and they will be able to say, because it is a gigantic U-turn what's happened today. We still wait to see when it will be introduced. We still wait to see at what level it will be introduced. I mean, again, you know, he chose his language very carefully today.
Yeah, of course.
It will be interesting to see, as I say, whether they'll reinstate what was there before or something else. But it's certainly the case that it's been hugely frightening to Labour MPs. Again, if I can return to the Scottish thing, I know that the deputy leader of the Scottish Labour Party was in London yesterday at Westminster, and you know, they are absolutely terrified, not just about this by-election in a couple of weeks' time, but about what might happen in the Scottish elections next year. In the Scottish elections next year, the polling is suggesting that the SNP, who've been in power from 2007, could still be in power by 2031. Wow. And a year ago, you know, it
that
looked
would never
as if...
have, they were done, weren't they, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Do you sigh at colleagues I'm a tutter myself. I might tut or look up at the ceiling. But sighing at a colleague now could be legally considered as harassment.
Oh, well, I'm sure it could, anything else, I mean, it's like, I looked at somebody in the wrong way and I was charged with harassment. I mean, where does this stuff stop?
I literally don't know, but young people are quite thin-skinned. I think they're not as robust as us oldies, John. You remember the robust chatter in a newsroom in our youth? I mean, they would faint.
Robust chatter, you call it? I can remember sitting outside somebody's office and seeing a typewriter going out the window, right? But, I mean, it's like...
Yeah, the old days of the editor screaming in your face until your hair moved backwards. No, that wasn't considered harassment at all. Nothing ever was. John, let's take a quick break. Back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi, this is Talk. It's Petrie here, and with me is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland, going through Thursday's newspapers. The Independent, quickly, John, those two stories. Trump ambushes South African president in the Oval Office, and PM feels the heat as he U-turns on winter fuel aid cut. The Labour's got to get better at communicating, really, as well. This could have been better dealt with, right? It could have been a win instead of looking like a loss.
I think they've got to get better at a whole series of things, and communication is only one part of it. Well, there's a whole delivery question. Yeah. There's just, I mean, again, I think one of the problems that they have is just this thing that, they made so many mistakes early on that I think maybe the electorates just decided kind of that's it. The other thing that certainly, when you talk to, Labour's opponents, that comes up in the doors all the time, and I think this isn't just confined to where I am, but south of the border as well, is that people have decided that they don't like Starmer, and that's it.
I wonder why.
And that, it just, he made a number of promises. He doesn't look as if he's kept them.
He doesn't look very strong. He looks weak. He looks weak.
He didn't give anybody, it's not a good look to come into government and promise people that things aren't going to get better, as we've said before, not now, but in 10 years' time. People need to have more than that. People's expectations need to be lifted, and they completely failed to do that. And they, as you say, have looked very unsure in government. He said, I think, as I said, a reasonable couple of weeks. But look, let's see how long that lasts. The next big thing, of course, to come in June is this spending review, when we're talking about welfare disability cuts. We're talking about cuts in public spending. It's difficult to see what good news can emerge out of that.
None. I mean, you're absolutely right. And if people don't start feeling better, if they don't start seeing that change, then it is over, even if it isn't already. Let's move on to the Telegraph. And Angela Rayner seems to be on manoeuvres at the moment to become, she's positioned herself to move away from a lot of the policies that are coming out of I was going to say Trump, Starmer and Reeves. She's starting to send her own emails suggesting more tax on savings and more tax on inheritance and more tax on tax. But she's also now talking about cutting migrant benefits. Now, this will be popular.
Well, look, it's a very interesting that, again, if Starmer has had a reasonable couple of weeks, the last thing he needs is this kind of thing. That, and I'm sure I'm reading earlier this evening that her allies are denying that the leaking of this memo to the Telegraph, which says all of those things that you're talking about, had anything to do with her. Okay.
Yeah, all right.
And
it's so deliberate. It's embarrassing.
She is already hugely popular, I think, amongst the members of the Labour Party. In any polling that I've seen of Labour Party members, she's up there at the top of the list, when I think the Chancellor's way down at the bottom of the list. She is the Deputy First Minister, and I think Deputy Prime Minister rather, and I think this is a really important point. That means that she can't be removed because, in effect, she was elected by Labour Party members as Labour's deputy, right? So it'll be difficult to move her. I mean, I think even a few weeks ago there were stories around about Starmer wanting to take housing away from her, and that hasn't happened.
He wanted to weaken her brief, and I think that is a sign that he is concerned by this, because if Labour does decide to kick Starmer out, and I've long said that he won't make it the full term of this Parliament. She's trying to position herself to be voted in, to officially take that position, as opposed to just as deputy it falling upon her. So look, they're just so obvious that they make me laugh. I mean, it's like a 3-year-old child going, "I didn't steal that. I didn't," with a sweetie in their mouth. I didn't steal it. You go, "Okay, I believe you."
Look, again, well, let's see what happens, in the autumn at the conference. Let's see, off the back of the spending review and the budget, where Labour is then. And of course, look, other alternatives. We see Angela Rayner out there. Other alternatives in the Labour Party are, of course, available. I mean, everybody talks about Wes Streeting being a possible leader of the Labour Party, and I find that also, hugely interesting. He seems to be somebody who's got, a lot of charisma and a lot of competence around, and seems to be doing things. Perhaps, when the government's record in delivery isn't that great. These are interesting times. The story in the Telegraph about taking benefits off of migrants is quite interesting, because we've been talking about the stuff in taxation that she's been espousing in that memo. Now, that might appeal to people inside the Labour Party, particularly a base that she would have amongst left-wingers. The migrants' benefits, taking away benefits, maybe not so much, but of course there's a wider appeal to be had, and that's the appeal to where the voters are in the country. Exactly. So that's why we're seeing that, I suspect.
Exactly that. It's I know that would be a very popular decision. It will never happen, but it would be a popular decision. Listen, I wanted to talk to you to you about this because it's not on the front pages of any of the other papers, and I think this is a really, really, really interesting story. It's a nib at the bottom of the Telegraph here, and it's about the Ukrainian lawyer. A former leading Ukrainian official was shot dead outside the American school in the Spanish capital of Madrid. It seems like he was just dropping off his children. He was 51 years old, Andrei Portnov, just dropping off his kids at the school, and was walking to his car, and he was attacked. I thought it was by two unidentified masked shooters, and killed him. And now he had been an MP and deputy head in the administration of the last president before Zelensky, the pro-Russian president Viktor Yanukovych, who was ousted in 2014. This is an assassination, but by whom?
Well, again, you know, who knows about the jiggery pokery that's going around about any of these things. It's difficult to point finger. Well, you know, people would want to point fingers.
At Russia.
Well, in this case, because of his, you know, his alliance with the previous president, perhaps not.
Perhaps
so,
not.
yeah, interesting case. But again, you know, you're looking more generally throughout Europe at the Russian influence in a whole series of domestic elections. And, you know, there's the situation in Romania at the weekend where, you know, the person, the mayor of Bucharest, won the election, who was regarded as the liberal and the moderate. Yeah. You know, and not George Simeon, I think the guy's name was, who was regarded as the hardliner but closer to Putin. So it's, again, it's interesting. I don't know what I'd like to speculate, or whether I'd like to speculate at all on who would be responsible for that situation in Madrid.
It's fascinating. It really, things like that, they tend to be little things that, in my experience, that just get bigger. They become really significant. You know,
it's the stuff of spy novels.
It really is,
it's
yeah.
the sort of thing that you used to read in fiction, you know.
But like I said, it's those stories that people go, oh, well, that's just that, and then down the years you go, that's why that happened. We will find out in the fullness of time. The Guardian, again, talking about Starmer announcing a U-turn over the winter fuel. We don't know when. Also, Trump in white genocide ambush. I don't know why they just didn't get up and walk out. I would have done. And the IDF fires warning shots at diplomats. Hopefully not literally.
Look, we're back to that situation we mentioned. They don't care.
No, actually, you're right. They don't care. That sums it up beautifully, John. We don't need to say any more than that. The Financial Times, again, the Financial Times really interesting to me because they are becoming less and less about money and more about world news, which I suppose in a roundabout way is about money, because again, they talk about Ramaphosa there and Trump, Starmer, making a U-turn on winter fuel payments, and down the side they're still talking about the M&S hack, and energy bill rises driving inflation. So that's what stuck our inflation up to 3.5%, which was a shock, wasn't it? Because it was a 2.7.
Yeah, one of the things that I find interesting about this whole debate, you know, the inflation rises are all about, I think, food prices. I think mainly we're getting the blame when I heard this earlier today. But one of the things I find really interesting, and the UK government did this over the European deal last week, was they started talking about how this deal will reduce prices in the shops. I have to say, I'm not sure that that's a very wise thing for any politicians to be saying, because people's perception is that prices never reduce in the shops.
They never go down. They just don't rise as quickly.
Yeah, sure. and when I heard Starmer saying these things the other day, I said to myself, this will come back to bite him in a few months, a year's time, or whatever people will say. As they've said about energy bills, you promised that, you know, you would take £300 off energy bills by the measures you were taking, and it hasn't happened. No. So I just think any promise that says prices will come down is probably a foolish one.
Yeah. Yeah, well, they're not the only ones to keep saying it, are they? You know, perhaps if they say it enough, we will believe it. But still, when I get my order and I spend my 50 quid, I get less and less for that 50 quid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I always get, what, just one basket? Is that because I have it delivered? Have you got another one up in the lorry for me? No? Oh, okay. That's all right then, great. John, let's take a break, back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, this is Talk and it's Petrie here, and with me is John Boothman, political correspondent at the Sunday Times in Scotland. John, turning our attention to the Daily Mail for Thursday, open warfare in the cabinet, Reeves reeling from a triple blow. Just talking about that, but she's not had a good run, has she, Rachel from Accounts?
She's not had a good run since she started,
no.
Right? I mean, you know, she seems to be, I don't know, a bit out of touch with the realities of modern Britain or something. Yeah. You know, the classic mistake of the winter fuel payment. That stuff now, unexpectedly with the inflation rising, as the Mail's talking about, and now maybe starting to get a bit undermined from within. You know, she's given the impression as the first woman chancellor of being pretty steely and sticking to her guns, but you know, that's the first big U-turn today. Can we expect to see any more? But, you know, she's going to have to gird her loins for that spending review, and that's going to be critical to Labour's fortunes. Labour can't afford, given where they are in the polls, to go that much further backwards. They're still obviously in office for a long time, but, you know, there's other elections to come rather than just the UK election in, 4 years' time now. Yeah. They've only been in office 10 months, and it's, you know, it's not been great.
No, it's not been great. And I wonder, you see, this is where my mind goes, John, is that these two women are supposed to share Dorneywood, aren't they? Their Grace and Favour house that they get. I wonder what that's like. Because I don't think they like each other very much. So do you think that they lock their bedrooms when I mean, I just wonder how they share this beautiful tax-paid weekend home.
Maybe one weekend on, one weekend off or something. I don't know how people have the time to do these sort of things, right? But there you go.
Leaving little notes for each other saying, leave my makeup alone. Stop touching my moisturiser. That's where I go in my head. But there you go. That's the Daily Mail. The Metro again, Starmer in fuel U-turn. The Sun, a very stark headline here. It actually made my head go back a bit. The Sun newspaper. Justice Secretary's vow. This is Shabana Mahmood. Pedos to be castrated. Big headline there. Mandatory drugging of perverts.
It's a good headline.
It's a good headline.
Again...
I mean, I again imagine 2 bricks. I didn't imagine that.
Can we see this happening in modern Britain? No. Does that end up in human rights courts and anywhere else before any of this stuff can happen?
I just don't. I mean, some paedophiles request drug castration, but I don't. But then I suspect that's okay then. But again, so this is paedophiles and rapists are to face chemical castration. I love the quote at the bottom though. The source said she will grab this problem by the proverbials.
Again, it is the Sun.
It's a good line.
It's interesting territory. I mean, I don't know. I think in this whole difficult and sensitive area, there's a whole lot of things can be done under the law. We need to have more convictions, for example.
Absolutely.
For rape cases, we need to spend more time in, again, what is, you know, somebody called it yesterday, a porn-saturated world that we live in, around about detection of paedophiles and other sexual offenders. Yeah, this is an interesting area. I'm not sure about that headline at all, and whether or not this is going anywhere fast.
And you know, I think that again, this confuses rape with sex. Yeah. And rape is about control and violence. And I think the idea of chemically castrating a man it won't stop him being controlling and violent. I don't know. We'll see. But there you go. That's the Sun newspaper. The Daily Star says that Jay Slater's mum has pleaded for 2 of the tragic teen's pals to be brought to court to give evidence after they were missing from his inquest yesterday. So the young lad that died, the witnesses have vanished.
I think, yeah, I mean, I think the inquest has been suspended at the request of the mother on the basis that these other boys have gone missing, and what was this, you know, terrible case that really hasn't been a great deal of light thrown in it, you know, last, I think, summer or autumn when he disappeared. It must be so very, very...
Greece or Crete or
Spain or something,
Spain,
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was overseas, yeah.
Yeah.
Then he went missing and then they found his body later, but there's still, at an inquest, you would hope that people would turn up to give evidence, wouldn't you? Yeah. Yep. And that would be that would be heartbreaking, I think. The Daily Express, again, a fight for fuel pay not all over. Kemi has vowed to keep on fighting for pensioners after Labour was pressed into a U-turn. She's going to take credit for it. Obviously.
I mean, I think, I mean, she didn't have a good day today. Starmer stood up in the House of Commons. He made his announcement right at the beginning of Prime Minister's questions, and she asked a number of questions, and I think it was the 4th question. She said, is the Prime Minister going to make a U-turn on the winter fuel payment? And it was like, what? I think there's a lot of unhappiness still around the Tory benches about her performance, and certainly that's in the context of, well, the Conservative Party in deep, deep trouble because of reform.
Yeah, they're number 4 now.
Yeah,
was I seeing that? So that's behind Labour, Reform, Labour, and the Lib Dems.
Yeah. Look, and
I mean,
think
that is, I've never seen that.
No, I think, this is something that's preying on the minds of lots and lots of Conservatives. Look, the difficulty that the Conservatives have in Scotland and in the UK is they just can't get a hearing. Nobody wants to listen to the Conservatives at the moment, even if they had the most sensible policies in the world.
No.
I mean, because of well, how many prime ministers did we have before Keir Starmer?
Yeah.
I mean, I forget, right? In such a short period of time, and people just don't want to hear what they've got to say.
Absolutely not. Well, they lied to us for 14 years, so that probably has got something to do with it as well. One of your picks for this chat was from the Sun, a newspaper, The Winds of Change. We could be hit by a what?
A tornado, according to the Sun. This is absolutely fascinating. Look, in Scotland, we've had the driest bout of weather in the past few months since 1964.
Wow.
We're sitting, last week, Scottish Water and the Scottish Environment Protection Agency issued warnings about, we're still in May, about water scarcity, advising us all to use less water to brush our teeth, take shorter showers, use watering cans in the garden, don't use your washing machine and your dishwasher unless they're full, because the reservoir levels are really low. It's not been raining. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic, right? But now I can hear my garden out the back door groaning and calling, it's great, there's going to be rain this week, never mind a tornado. But it's just been incredible. At the same time, the other thing that's happening is that there is barely now a day that's been gone by in the past, month or so, when there's not a wildfire somewhere because the countryside is dry. A lot of this stuff ends up, one spark, right, from anything and anybody, and you can have a huge wildfire that causes loads of damage. Businesses and farms have been told that they need to be planning what to do about possible water shortages that might be coming. It's
and
a
that's
pretty
amazing.
incredible situation.
That's amazing to me because much of Scotland is a sponge.
Yeah, look, I've been looking into this over the past few days, and it is fascinating. We use a lot more water in Scotland compared to anywhere else in the UK. I mean, it's an astonishing figure of about 40 gallons per person per day is the amount of water that we use. One of the reasons, I was talking to Scottish Water about this, who are the publicly owned water company because they're not privatised as in south of the border.
All right, stop showing off.
No, but it's just interesting, and they say that the reason that we use more water in Scotland is because people think it rains all the time and it will never run out. Right? It's also cheaper. Well, but people do. And now we find this really interesting. Now, these warnings we had last, I think, Friday, and again, the water authorities are telling us that actually they've been successful and people have actually cut their consumption of water in the past week. So it's an incredible situation.
I mean, I think there's still a hosepipe ban from last year where I am, I think. I don't know. I can't remember. They're always throwing one on us. Maybe it's because Scottish people are just cleaner than English people. Is that what we're trying to say?
Well, you may say that. I couldn't possibly comment.
John, thank you very much indeed. It's always a joy and a privilege to talk to you. Enjoy the weather, I guess, in Scotland. Right, coming up now, between you and me, it is the phone-in. It is a full hour of us just chatting, really. There's no other guest here. It's the only hour on the station that does this, and so it's a fully open communication. So what we're going to talk about is, You know how speed limits are set at the moment, roughly around 20 miles an hour in big cities and towns and things like that. How do you fancy looking back on those days with glee and thinking, oh, I remember when we used to be able to go 20, as Wales is now talking in certain areas of reducing the speed limit to 5 miles an hour. Is it even possible to drive at 5 miles an hour? I don't know. But anyway, give me a call. I'd love to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. I'll speak to you in a minute.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It is Petrie here with you, and I'm here until 1 o'clock, and it's just me, no guests, nothing. It's just you and me. So it'll be pretty lonely if you don't pick up the phone. So I want to talk to you about what it's like being a driver in Britain today. It's not a joy anymore, is it really? I just feel like every time I go out, I'm going to get a fine for something I didn't know it was wrong or wasn't wrong yesterday and is now wrong today, but I didn't know that. You know, everything about it is just joyless now. 20 miles an hour. It seems really slow. I mean, particularly when I'm heading on my way home at 1 o'clock in the morning, that feels really, really slow, especially when the roads are pretty empty and you know, it just seems to me to be ridiculous. It seems to me to be deliberate to make it joyless, to get us out of our cars. The elite, the rich, Sadiq Khan in this city, who, by the way, drives around in two taxpayer-funded Range Rovers, top of the range Range Rovers, with his security team because he's not safe to travel on the underground. Well, there's a lot of women that aren't safe to travel on the underground. We don't get gifted two teams of security and a blooming Range Rover paid for by somebody else. Anyway, bitter much? Me? No. Maybe we will look back on the days of 20 miles an hour as the halcyon days of speed. We may look back and go, the wind in my hair at 20 miles an hour. That was lovely, wasn't it? And the reason I'm saying that is because in Wales, Labour is now considering cutting speed limits in some areas to 5 miles an hour. 5 miles an hour. Jane Hutt, if you want someone to blame, she's Welsh Labour's chief whip, said that lowering speed restrictions to the unprecedentedly low level would in some circumstances be appropriate. 5 miles an hour. She said, well, clearly road safety is about road safety. Genius. And it's interesting that an association did come forward with proposals based on evidence that in some circumstances 10 miles an hour, let alone 5 miles an hour, is appropriate in terms of road speeds. I'm really not making this up. I am genuinely not lying to you. Genuinely. I think all the evidence has shown that the rollout of a 20 mile an hour speed limit in Wales, as appropriately instigated by local authorities, has not only saved lives, cut insurance bills. Give me a call if you've had your insurance bill cut. That's a lie. But actually has now been welcomed by the people of Wales. I thought it was the singularly most unpopular policy in the 26-year history of Welsh devolution. That's what I thought, because that's what it was. The singularly most unpopular policy decision in 26 years of Welsh devolution. A petition against it, in fact, gained nearly 500,000 signatures, the largest ever recorded, and forced the devolved minister behind the policy to step down from his front bench post. That's how popular it was. Has it certainly become popular? Please, you Welsh lovelies, give me a call. Are you pleased now about the 20 miles an hour? And do you actually think, it's a bit fast, actually? I think probably 10. Actually, no, damn it, not 10, 5. Let's do 5 miles an hour. This is no surprise, has come from the Road Safety Foundation, which is funded almost entirely by taxpayers. They get £761,000 a year, this Road Safety Foundation, £761,000 a year to come up with these policies and these ideas. I don't even know if my car registers 5 miles an hour. I'm pretty sure the first number is 10. I don't even know what it feels like to try. I can't try it tomorrow because I'll get beeped at. But 5 miles an hour? Are you actually having a laugh? In a report titled Determining Safe Speeds, well, 0 is the safest speed, you idiots. The charity claimed evidence-based maximum operating speeds on British roads, if most deaths and life-changing injuries are to be avoided, should be set at 10 miles an hour around schools, hospitals and in the vicinity of major sports or social or cultural events. Most deaths and life-changing injuries are to be avoided. Well, do you know what? They could pretty well be avoided by people getting off their mobile phones and actually looking left or right when they cross the blooming road. 10 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. Anyway, yeah, this charity, the Road Safety Foundation or whatever it's called, 86% of its money is taxpayers. We're paying them to make our lives more miserable. Mind you, we are also giving the government more money to make our lives more miserable, I suppose. Anthony has messaged and said it's impossible to drive at 5 miles an hour. It's 5 miles an hour on our caravan park, and to keep to that I have to get out of my car and push it. Well, that's what I was saying. I think what they want I think what they want us to employ, they want all the unemployed people to be employed walking in front of our cars with a red flag. The glory days of driving when it first started. Anyway, look, and if you're saying, well, it's only in Wales, we don't need to worry about it, it's only the Welsh. I mean, I would never say it's only the Welsh. I love the Welsh. But it's only in Wales. No, it won't be, will it? No. Keir Starmer's probably getting those signs made up right now. 10 miles an hour, 5 miles an hour. Right now, he's probably going, oh, yeah, if they get away with it there, I'm doing it. 20's too fast. What is going on? I mean, they want us out of our cars so desperately. I think they'd have to take it out of my cold, dead hands, I tell you. I'm not giving it. I don't care how slow they make me drive. I'm still going to blooming drive. 5 miles an hour. Aaron has said, I'm driving now. It's impossible to stay at 5 miles an hour. This government has about 10 brain cells between them. And that's from Aaron in Belfast. And Aaron also told me, he said, you're being far too polite about Keir Starmer. Nobody could ever accuse me of being polite about Keir Starmer. He's just a scumbag who hates the British people. Thank you, Aaron. So listen, get in touch. Tell me, what do you make of looking back on the days of 20 miles an hour and thinking, we were like boy racers then those days. 20 miles an hour. God, do you remember? Amazing. Give me a call. The number 0344 499 1000. You can message me as well. Text the word talk and your message to 87222. Right, let's go to the calls. And Chris is in Epsom. Chris, what do you reckon?
Well, Petrie, no funny stories about bedboards and pizzas tonight. Let's welcome Wales to reform.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, there was a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, following the local elections in England, the reforms, what was it, 600 and something councillors, 10 councils. There was a question that next year in, I think it's June, they vote again. And there was a question that Reform was going to do rather well in Wales and might even take control of Wales. I think that the Welsh lady, chairman, whoever it is, that is now taken over from the guy that stepped down after the 20-mile-an-hour debacle, has just handed Wales to Reform.
I don't disagree with you. I think these absolute numbskull, ridiculous ideas. I think they're deliberately trying to hack us off. Because if you were sat in a room and went, how do we really, really make people mad? I know. Let's suggest 5 miles an hour. 5 miles. I can't even believe I'm saying it.
When I heard it earlier today on Talk, because I have it on all day, as you know, I'm stuck at home looking after Mum. I first heard it today. I thought it was a joke. Yeah. And as the day went on, I thought somebody's taken the red and the blue pill together.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous. But it's no more ridiculous, Petrie, than the appeal for Lucy Connolly being turned down yesterday by the judge that said it was not. Now, let me think of the words. It was not I can't think of his actual words, but he said it wasn't an over
severe punishment.
Severe punishment.
Look, yeah. I think Lucy Connolly broke the law. She did break the law because what she did is incite to violence. She called to arms people to set fire to hotels. That is wrong. That is illegal, and it always has been. That is not new. Do I think 2.5 years is too long? Yes, I do. I do think the sentence is too long, but I don't disagree with her going away. I think they should reduce it, but not squash it.
I agree with you that she was wrongly advised to plead guilty. She was held without bail beforehand. The whole.
But can I just say quickly to you, Chris, ignorance is not a defence in law. it never has been. So she is guilty because she did write it. And then she said, I didn't mean it. But that is not a defence. That is not a defence in law.
Actually, Petrie, I agree with you. But I wrote that 4 days ago. If you, I know you get tweets from me. If you look at my tweets 4 days ago, I wrote, ignorance is no exception to the law. No. And that's how I was brought up.
Yeah.
But a judge who did not give a jail sentence to a rapist of a 12-year-old child because he thought the defendant said he didn't realise it was against the law. Now, I stated in my tweet that I put up that ignorance is
no, it's not, and that should not have been a mitigation. And then look, we have a disjointed justice system at the moment. I absolutely agree with that. But 2 wrongs don't make a right, or 2 rights don't make a wrong, or whatever, you know. But we've got to join this all up, because if you're going to say in one case that ignorance is no defence, then you have to apply that to other cases. So I completely agree with you on that. I completely agree with you on that.
Absolutely. And the other thing that is disjointed as well, Petrie, that if you look at the judge that refused to say the sentence was disproportionate, he's actually reduced the sentence on 6 sex cases, including child rapists from the Pakistani rapist gangs, the Lord... I forget his name now.
Best not to use names, because I can't fact check. Sure. I can't fact check any of this when I'm on air.
Okay, he reduced the sentence on a sex offence, which was a historical sex offence, but he reduced it from 5.5 years to 2.5 years, so he actually walked free on the day.
Because of the time served.
Yeah, time served. It really is. It sticks in the craw. The same as you look at. You were talking about we started off on the speed talk of Wales. Now I understand why Khan is doing it, because he signed up to the 15-minute city, and when they brought in the 20-mile-an-hour zones outside of schools, I thought, okay. That's fair enough. I understand that. I've got a junior school at the end of my road. Now, they haven't brought it in at the end of my road, around the school. But driving through London, I understood and was quite happy to accept that. But where I used to go up to the bike sheds in London on my motorbike, I don't go anymore. I went once last year, I've been once this year, because the 20-mile-an-hour zones outside of schools have been extended so far that it really is a pain in the backside.
They're everywhere. They are every road that is council controlled. They are. They are on 20 miles an hour now is standard on every single road that is controlled by Sadiq Khan. And that's it. But it's even worse now, because around by me, with schools now, what they've done, 20 miles an hour wasn't inconvenient enough. They've now closed roads around schools. So you can't even drive past. So there's one road that I can use, and I can't use that between certain hours. So I have to go miles around the block to get home if I'm out, if I've taken the dogs to the vet or something. I can't use that road because it's literally closed for an hour and a half in the morning and in the afternoon now. So they're now doing that, and it's just like, well, I don't remember any kids being knocked down at 20 miles an hour, or even 30 miles an hour. I don't, because people tend to slow down near schools anyway.
Well, I remember what you. I was listening earlier, obviously, and about the fines for using certain roads at certain times, and I laughed because I'm Fulham born and bred, although I'm in Epsom now.
Right. I know Fulham.
And I still go up to, when I was a little boy, I used to go to Wars in Chelsea and look in their windows at the motorcycles. and luckily I own a Harley Davidson, and I use Wars all the time, and I used to live in near Chelsea Harbour.
That road is now closed to anybody who hasn't got a Hammersmith and Fulham pass. Yeah.
Correct. Now, the thing was, I already understood that there's a barrier in Chelsea Harbour to stop anybody else going through. The taxis or residents are only allowed. Do you know why that's there? That's there because when P&O built Chelsea Harbour, they said to the council, look, if we put a Fulham postcode on there, it's not going to be, the people aren't going to value it as much. So we'd like to put a Chelsea postcode on there. So this is absolutely true. So they agreed that they'd have a Chelsea postcode, but the council tax would be paid to Fulham and Hammersmith, right?
Right.
So they agreed that and they did it. And then there was an argument over who's going to keep the roads, right? And they couldn't settle it, so they put the barrier there, which is an objection between Chelsea and Fulham. Chelsea and Hammersmith, Fulham and Hammersmith and Chelsea, and that's why that barrier is there. Not last year, the year before, Townmead Road is one you're talking about.
Yeah.
They closed that off to traffic that didn't live there. Well, I didn't see the signs.
No, the signs are tiny. Yeah, and also they're really complicated because they got the speed sign there, or whatever sign is there, and then underneath on a plaque it just says unless you've got a Hammersmith and Fulham parking permit or whatever. Yeah.
Correct. So I rode through it. I didn't see it.
No.
And I get a fine come through the post. I couldn't believe when I got it.
I know.
I wrote such a steaming letter. I'm 64 years old, and as I say, born and bred in Fulham. We moved out to Surrey when I was 10, but I moved back to Fulham when I was 17. And I wrote them such a steaming letter. It's the only driving fine that I've ever been let off.
Oh, they let you off?
Yeah, they did. I wrote them such a steaming letter.
I mean, it is so naughty because those roads, people pay, vehicle exercise. They call it VED now, but it was the, road tax, wasn't it? And then they're just closing these roads off to people. I don't mind that road because I'm actually allowed to use it. I mean, I don't live anywhere posh like that, but I do. My council is Hammersmith and Fulham Council that covers Shepherd's Bush. So I'm allowed to drive down that road, and I do feel a bit smug when I do, but it's not fair. I think it's distinctly unfair because that's a really important cut. That's a really important road. Chris, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. Just going because I have got to take a break, but I will be back in just a moment.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hi there, good morning to you. This is Talk and it's Petrie here. Just had a call in from, excuse me, Tony in North Wales. He called to say that he's got an automatic which will accelerate on its own if he takes his foot off the brake. From stopped, it gets up to and stays at 8 miles an hour. Speeding fine, Tony, speeding fine, immediately. But look, they might make it 10 miles an hour. I've got more details on this for you. A report has recommended reducing the speed limit to this level. This is 10 miles an hour now. That's fast, isn't it? To 10 miles an hour on all roads surrounding schools, hospitals and in the vicinity of major events such as concerts or football matches. Road Safety Charity also said single charity roads, including in the country where the national speed limits are often 60 miles an hour, you know, that the white sign with the black stripe through it, national speed limit, should be reduced to no more than 20 miles an hour. Get this bit. To reach its goal of Vision Zero. Is that 0 miles an hour? It's just going to become a car park. It's going to be like the M25. I mean, what's the point of that? Vision Zero. I'd like to give them Vision Zero, if you know what I mean. Vision Zero is the ambition to eliminate road deaths and serious injuries based on the moral position that no death or serious injury should be considered an acceptable byproduct of mobility. How are you going to mitigate all risk in the world? This is pathetic and ridiculous. Vision Zero. So 60 miles an hour, where you go 60 miles an hour now, they want all of those roads across the country to be 20. A and B roads across the country. So a move to reduce this to 20 miles an hour raises the prospect of tripling journey times. I could do that maths. The report said 10 mile an hour limits would be suitable where there's a particular prevalence of pedestrians and or bicycles or motorcyclists, and that 20 miles an hour should be used in all other locations where pedestrians and cyclists or motorcyclists mix with cars. Researchers said that 30 mile an hour limits should only be used on roads where no pedestrians or cyclists, but noted that higher speed limits could be permitted on roads that had fully segregated facilities for any pedestrians or cyclists. On these roads, i.e. some dual carriageways, including motorways, the priority is to provide adequate roadside infrastructure measures to ensure that road users are suitably protected if they run off the road at current operating speeds. 2/3 of the people in Wales objected to Wales becoming the first UK nation to roll out a default 20 mile an hour speed limit. But apparently you love that now. Apparently. So there you go. 5 miles an hour in some places, 10 miles an hour, and 20 miles an hour as a default, even on A roads, 60 mile an hour roads. What do you reckon? Steve in East Sussex says, surely driving so slow in first gear causes engine revs to be higher, therefore causing more pollution and wear and tear on the car. Yeah, but they haven't thought about that. This is heading to Vision Zero. 0 miles an hour. No, zero. Look. Of course, zero deaths is a brilliant thing, but you can't mitigate accidents happen, and people. You know, we need to have personal responsibility. You need to drive properly and safely and look out for each other. This is just nonsense. Honestly, it makes my teeth curl. Let me go to the calls now. Julie is in Pembrokeshire. Julie, good morning.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well, going a bit mad.
You want to live here?
I know. Well, I love Pembrokeshire, by the way. It is absolutely beautiful.
It is stunning.
But living in rural Wales, 20 miles an hour?
Yes.
Ouch.
Yes.
How do you get anywhere? slowly.
Well, in a sense, we're used to driving slow because we quite often get stuck behind tractors and trailers.
And they love slowing down when they see us. People behind them, we know that.
I've been stuck behind a tractor and there's been at least 30 cars behind it.
I think they try to get the longest snake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is on a major A40 road.
Honestly, the words I could use. I go to visit my sister quite a lot in Ludlow, up in Shropshire, so I'm well aware of these tractor drivers. And we know these tractors can go really fast. You know when sorry, I'm interrupting you, but you know when there was the farmers' protests at Westminster?
Yeah.
Okay. So
now that I agree with.
No, I do agree with that. But when I was on my way into work down the A40, all the tractors were leaving Westminster up the A40. They were going really fast. And I was like, yeah, you see, I knew you so-and-sos could go that fast.
I know. My boys have worked on farms. One of them still does, and he drives tractors, and they can go 40.
Yeah.
But obviously for safety reasons, especially if they've got a trailer or like a silage thing behind them, whatever, they have to take the time, which is understandable.
Yeah, well.
But on occasions, they can pull over. Some of them don't. Even though there's a parking area, they don't pull over. They think, oh, I've only got another 2 miles to go, so I'll carry on. But when you're coming from a place that is very near to a ferry port, going to the nearest big town, which normally would take about 15 minutes, and it can take you 30 minutes if you get stuck behind a couple of tractors, especially this time of year.
Yeah, yeah.
But
look, you can't go faster than 20 anyway now. What about 10 miles an hour? What do you reckon?
Oh, no. That'd crucify the place. Like I say, I'm very close to a ferry port where we get the big, big not tractor trailers.
Lorries, yeah.
The big
containers,
lorries. Yes. They come off the ferry and they've got to get to the M4. So from the ferry port where I am, up the A40, onto the, I think it's the A487, I think, and then towards the M4.
Mm-hmm.
And occasionally there can be a lot of traffic on some of the ferries and a lot of big lorries. So if you get, in the afternoon, if you get stuck behind the ferry traffic, which I try not to go out of my house when the ferry traffic's in, because I can't get out of my street, because my street goes straight onto the A40.
Oh.
Yeah. Through my little village, the speed limit is still 50 miles an hour, whereas the other two villages are being put down to 40 miles an hour. And we get the school kids coming off the school buses, or in the morning, they have to go to the school bus. They have to cross the actual A40 to get to the bus. Yeah. Through my village, we have had quite a few car crashes, bumps, a couple of, not major ones, but biggish ones.
Would you welcome 20 miles an hour then through?
No.
No, you still wouldn't?
No. Schools and certain residential streets, fine. You know, you expect them to slow down in certain residential streets and outside schools. But they put a 20 mile an hour limit on the main road. Well, it's not the main road, it's the road that goes to the ferry, just on the seashore. And it used to be 30. We've never, ever had an accident on that road. Never. Yet they still dropped it at part of it to 20 miles an hour.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I totally agree. Look, accident hotspots and things like that, I can understand. Yeah. But all this talk of, you know, the national speed limit being lowered to 20 miles an hour, I mean, come on.
It would cause more congestion, especially certain times of the day. It would cause more congestion, which in turn causes more air pollution.
Yeah.
And frayed tempers, because people need to get to certain places. It's like certain delivery vans and delivery lorry drivers have a certain time that they can drive.
And then they've got to take a break, haven't they? So it's not the miles they drive, it's the hours that they drive.
The hours. So if they get stuck behind traffic, especially on this road, if they get stuck behind traffic and they're reaching their limit, they then have to pull over. When they get to their destination, if they're a certain amount of time overdue, those companies can refuse to take their delivery.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So, you know, the government...
We might as well go back to horse and cart, I'm telling you.
Well, to be honest, around here, it would be a good thing.
Might be cheaper as well, actually. I've got a decent-sized garden, but I've got no grass, so I'd have to bring in hay. But yeah, I mean, I just don't know. I mean, the idea of dropping speed limits to 20 miles an hour in where it's 60 at the moment, or 10 miles an hour where it's 20, or even 5 miles an hour. I just think this is a really bad joke.
It wouldn't work.
Couldn't, could it?
There's in one of the places where they dropped the speed limit here to 20 mile an hour. The only time most people take note of that is if there is a police car in front of you or behind you, or if it's an old pensioner.
Do you not have? Do you not? We can't move in London without being photographed. So there are cameras everywhere. So there's no cameras to manage the speed limit.
We've got the odd few, but I don't know if they work.
I'm moving to Pembrokeshire. I'm coming to live in your village. It's great to talk to you, Julie. Thank you very much indeed. Anne says it's going to be the death of Welsh tourism if they reduce the national speed limit to 30. No, they want to reduce it to 20. It would take wagons and cars forever to get to and from Holyhead of ferries, and that's from Anne. I can't even. This has got to be a joke, hasn't it? A quick break. I'll be back in a sec.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good morning. It's Petrie here with you until 1 o'clock, and got loads of messages here. Catherine has said, "Hi Petrie, love the show." Thank you. I was a kid in the 70s and 80s, and I was taught by my parents that roads are a dangerous place and cars have right of way. We were taught to look both ways before crossing. This speed reduction is absurd. People need to take responsibility for their actions, and society needs to respect each other and stop with this "it's all about me" attitude. Nowadays, people don't seem to understand the word no anymore. I totally agree with that. I want to ask you, Catherine, were you a member of the Tufty Club? That was very important when we were kids. And in those 70s and 80s, I think you would have been. Yeah, I mean, we had road crossing lessons at a primary school. They used to get a police officer to come round, the same one that taught us our cycling proficiency, actually, because I think there was only one policeman in the area. But we used to be taught how to. They used to have roads drawn out on the playground, and we used to learn how to cross the road. I mean, it was all very. We were taught how to respect cars. The only problem is now with cars is that I call them stealth vehicles now, because a lot of them are electric and you can't hear them. So, you know, if you are distracted, you can walk out in front of them. But the thing is to not be distracted. Stop looking at your phones. Pedestrians in London, they're just, honestly, kamikaze pedestrians. They're ridiculous. A question here saying, so does the speed limit apply to cycles, electric bikes, scooters and children learning to ride a bike or tricycle? No, probably not. So the cars will be doing, 5 to 10 miles an hour, and all these, as happens already, actually. In London, cyclists, motorcycles, mobility scooters will be to overtake us soon. Right, I've read that one out. Gary, thank you for your message. I'm very impressed. Another thing you can do, we're talking about chicken broth. Because I said to Gary, don't throw away a chicken carcass, use it to make chicken broth. The other thing you can do with chicken broth is do a velouté, which is very posh, isn't it? It sounds very posh. But basically, it's just like, I think it's almost similar to what you did there, where you use, when you're making a roux, like a white sauce, instead of using milk, you use chicken broth. So you put the butter and flour, and then make the roux with the chicken broth, and that's a velouté. And then you can put things like, one of my favourites is cauliflower in it. It's beautiful. And then mush it up. And then you've got a really posh velouté. So there you go. There's another thing to try. So do try that. Anyway, cookery lesson over. Let's talk to Tristan, who's in Bedford. Morning, Tristan.
Morning, Petrie. How are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I just think we're in sort of becoming a world of absolute delusion.
Yep.
I really, really do. There's no common sense. There's no logic at all. And as Chris from Epsom said, they are just driving people into the arms of reform, to be honest with you. I mean, I live in Bedford, and I just wonder what's going to happen. What happens in London is going to come down here.
Look, it does, and this is why when I say to people, we're talking about Wales, but don't be thinking it's just going to happen in Wales.
I'm not.
It'll be all over the country, and some of the details on this charity that is 86% paid for by you and me, by taxpayers. We give them over £700,000 a year to come up with this nonsense. I mean, if they paid me £700,000 a year, I could come up with equal nonsense. I'd be very happy to do it. But they're talking about 20 miles an hour, all 60-mile-an-hour roads, where there's a national speed limit of 60 miles an hour, to be reduced to no more than 20.
It just seems trying to eliminate actual risk, but you can't eliminate risk. It's like if you do, something simple as washing up. If you have hot water, if you put too much hot water in, and you could scald yourself. That could happen, But there isn't something saying, oh well, careful, caution, hot water. Probably
in America.
Yes,
they are. They have to have a warning not to put cats in microwaves in America.
It's just my mind boggles. Every time when I hear these things, I end up vaping so much more.
I'm sorry. I mean, I'm trying to do it in a light-hearted way, because it is ludicrous. It is absolutely ludicrous, and it makes me feel like that we've slipped into an alternative blooming universe. What the hell is going on? I mean, genuinely,
I don't know.
genuinely, what's going on?
I mean, these people I don't know what they listen to. I don't know what they watch. I don't know what focus groups they have. But it is just utter lunacy. And
Utter lunacy.
Delusion. It's delusion. Like I just, my mind boggles. It really, really does. Like I keep hearing more and more things, and it just gets more and more stupid.
So I have to laugh or I'll cry.
Well, it's like the judicial system. I mean, that's just lunacy
it really is.
As well.
Yeah.
And like what we're doing with the Chagos Islands. Oh yes, you take the Chagos Islands, and we'll pay you to take them. That's like me
We'll give you £9 billion that we haven't got.
It's like, here's my brand new car. You can have my brand new car, and I'll pay you to drive my brand new car. I mean, this is just. My mind just boggles. It's just absolute lunacy. And the thing is, it doesn't seem to be abating.
No.
A limit. It just gets worse and worse.
But I mean, this stupid organisation clearly has to justify its remit. It has I gotta say it again, over £700,000 a year they get from us.
But it's like what you said. It's like you gave the new language earlier. You said Vision Zero, not net zero. It's now Vision Zero.
Vision Zero. What? I mean, what? Stop it! Just stop with the nonsense already. We've had enough. And that's how I feel.
Ridiculous. I mean, how on earth they feel they could actually keep power, and because that's what it comes down to, just power and control. I
agree.
Power and control, nothing more than power and control.
Or they're trying to prepare us for a day where poor people like you and me, and I mean poor as in average poor people, right? I'm not casting aspersions on your financial situation, but we're not billionaires, right? So only billionaires will be able to drive, and the rest of us will just, I don't know, we'll have to go back to a pony and trap, which, by the way, is a Cockney rhyming slang for what this idea is. Yeah.
My mind. I really do wonder. I would love for you to get some of these people on air to actually justify what these laws that they're looking to implement are and why they're looking to do it, because some of it just makes absolutely no
sense. Look, I understand that we have to slow down around schools, but please,
that's common sense.
Yes, thank you. And in Germany, on the autobahns, they say drive according to your skill and to the weather. So if it's foggy, you know to slow down, right?
Yeah.
You know
and
that
braking distance,
and your braking distance and things like that. So they trust drivers to behave like adults. Why can't they trust us? You know, we're a very low accident country because cars are much better now. They brake much quicker. Their stopping is much better. There's all sorts of warning things that go off if you get within a mile of something these days. So we are safer, and there are fewer and fewer and fewer deaths and accidents. Sometimes you just can't mitigate for that. There will always be, you know, somebody who does something really stupid and wipes people out. But that's life. That's the risk. That there is risk in life.
But the thing is, the same thing they're not thinking about the bigger picture is like what's happening with London and other cities. What will happen is it will just make people just won't go to these places. No. They won't go to the shops. So when they want to keep upping the business rates and things like that, people just won't be able to do it because they won't have the footfall. Yeah. And that's what's happening at the moment. There's no common sense or logic to any of this.
No, none of it. And also like parking rates going up and up and up. I mean, it is ridiculous. And like I say, I'm almost scared to take my car out because every time I do, there'll be a road that I was able to drive down yesterday that I can't drive down today, but I didn't know about it until I get the fine because the signs are so tiny. And actually, I'm trying to concentrate on the road and not running people over instead of reading all the signs.
Obviously, with the LTN. I mean, as I said, living in Bedford, we haven't got it yet, but obviously in London, it's crazy.
It is. It'll be there. It'll get there. When you've got Universal Studios or whatever it is there, the theme park.
Oh yes, we do have that coming across in 6 years' time.
And then they'll reduce all the speed limits to 5 miles an hour. So you have to go around in a little pretend car. Tristan, it's good to talk to you. Thank you. You take care. Right, I'm going to come back in a minute. I've got to take a quick break.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello there, good morning. It is Petrie here with you until the top of the hour. That gives us about 10 minutes left on the programme. And loads of messages that I want to read. Keith says, is the proposed reduction of the speed limit part of Labour's master plan to keep us in our current areas and reduce movement and spending? Could well be. They don't want us to reduce spending. They just want us to reduce movement. These 15-minute cities, and well, they won't be 15 minutes, they'll be 15 hours if they go down to 5 miles an hour. We all walk an average speed at 3 miles an hour. I thought it was faster than that. Anyway, 3 miles per hour, so this is pointless. But that's what they want us to say. They want us to go, oh, we'll get out of our car then and walk. 5 miles an hour is crazy. My mobility scooter does 4 miles an hour. At this rate, I'll be overtaking cars. Also, these hateful electric cars being pushed onto us are so heavy that if they hit you at 20, you'd be hurt more than if it was a petrol car. They're also destroying the roads, and that's from Lynn in Yorkshire. Sam says, evening, my dad is in Wales and part of a classic car group. Trust me, they are not happy. We want to visit very soon in our old 1996 motorhome. I don't think it'll run at that speed even. I'll be asking my dad for a tow at this rate. It's from his classic car, and that's from Sam in Lancashire. Ernie says, have you noticed as well that the new yellow speed cameras are easy to spot in the day, but come night time they don't reflect light and are virtually invisible? That'll be deliberate, won't it? That'll be to try and get us. Joanna says 10 miles an hour or 5 miles an hour in Wales, with lots of laughing emojis. I hope that's cyclists too. They don't want deliveries, workmen or tourists. You would get overtaken by a sheep and all the jokes that come with it. And Latoya has sent me another picture of her beautiful cat. It looks very like Edith, that cat, actually. Very like Edith. This is MJ, my cat, Miss Edith. Doesn't it look like Edith? It's to Gabriella, my producer, who knows Edith well. Locked in, rough day, perfect way to wind down with you, Petrie. Oh, Latoya, you are a sweetheart. And so is MJ. Thank you for that. Oh, reform has been mentioned a lot through this hour, and I just want to read you this because this tickled me. It made me laugh. Reform UK, because they seized a number of councils, as we will remember, in the May local elections. Reform have now declared war on those low traffic neighbourhoods. Nigel Farage's party says it will axe all hated green road schemes in all 10 of its newly won local authorities. They said that they're ridiculous and that they're going to get rid of them in all of their local authorities. Fast forward a couple of days, all 10 council areas controlled by right-wing party tell The Guardian that they actually have no low traffic neighbourhoods. So they've achieved it then. But yeah, we're gonna cancel them all. They're all gonna go. They don't have any. There's none of them in any of the councils. There are no low traffic neighbourhoods. But anyway, I suppose it's the thought that counts. Maybe. Rebecca is in Nottingham. Morning, Rebecca.
Morning, Petra.
How are you doing? All right.
I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Good, I'm very well, thank you. Now, tell me, what do you make of this? 5 or 10 miles an hour speed limit?
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, a lot of what I was going to say has been said. It's, you walk more than 5 miles an hour, cyclists go more than 5 miles an hour, so what's the point in using the car at the end of the day?
But that, you know, Rebecca, that's what they want to hear. That's what annoys me. I'm going to still drive if they do make me employ a man with a red flag to walk in front of my car, because they want us out of our cars, because they want it just to be like it was, the preserve of the very, very rich. And so, no, we must keep going, even if it's really slow. I mean, what I can't bear the thought of is that all national road speed limits and the national speed limit being reduced to 20.
That is ridiculous. I mean, in Nottingham, all outside roads are 20 mile an hour. It's only where the tram is, they take all the speed humps out, and that's 30 mile an hour, but we've got 20 mile an hour and speed humps, and even the police cars don't stick to the speed limits.
Yeah, I mean, on one road near me, there's speed bumps, there's 20 miles an hour, and every sort of 50 yards there's a road narrowing where they've deliberately narrowed the road so you have to stop for the car coming on. I mean, that is probably 5 miles an hour down that road. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, it's too much. Pick a lane, literally, one. Yeah, it's mad. It's absolutely mad. Rebecca, thank you for calling in. Kath says Wales is run by a completely undemocratic coalition of Labour and Plaid Cymru. The Welsh Assembly is about to increase its number by roughly a third with no regard for the views of the electorate. It is insular and inward-looking, but thinks of itself as kind and doing things differently from the rest of the UK. We need a referendum on its abolition. Oh, that's Catherine from Cardiff. I'm quite fond of Cardiff. I like Cardiff. But yeah, I mean, that wow. You don't want to be... I promise you, Catherine, you don't want to be run by the lot that running us at the moment. Honestly, you really don't. Mind you, which is worse. Lorraine says, Labour are liars. We do not want 20 miles an hour. Over 1 million Welsh voters signed a petition against the Welsh 20 mile an hour blanket limit placed across Wales. This was a third of the total population of Wales. It was unprecedented and the largest petition ever. The electorate didn't vote for 20 miles an hour and didn't want it. Labour ignored this petition and in the main have refused to reinstate 30 miles an hour. Under Labour, devolved Wales is now a third world nation. We have the worst education and health in Britain. We had the longest and most draconian COVID lockdowns, and this is what you get under years of Labour control. We in Wales live in a pseudo-dictatorship, and now they have the audacity to increase the Senate members of Parliament from 60 to 96, again without mandate. Labour are truly the enemy within. That is a brilliantly written. Lorraine, thank you very much indeed for that. Not much support. We were told that they loved it. But anyway, very quickly, Herbie. Gosh, it's been a while. Herbie, got to be quick because I've only got a minute. But nice to speak to you.
You too. Listen, does this apply, this madcap scheme of 10 miles or 5 miles an hour, apply to the cyclists and the e-bikes?
Of course not.
I wonder. Yeah, exactly. Of course not. They do more damage than anybody else, and yet we are paying the price for it.
It is honestly, it is crazy, isn't it? I mean, the bikes in London, and actually, it's the little motorcycles. That are an absolute menace. They buzz around you like a swarm of wasps.
Yes, they do, and this is it. They're very dangerous. I mean, say the cyclists themselves just jump the lights, jump the crossings on the pavement, everything. They break the law more than anybody else, and yet they get away. They don't even pay for a licence or insurance or anything.
No, and they scratch your car and just cycle off. Yeah, I agree. I completely agree.
You've lost it.
Herbie, you're adorable. Thank you. Thank you for calling in.
Thank you.
Lovely to speak to you again. Herbie used to call me at an old radio station. I was like, guess who's to blame for the 20 mile an hour speed limit? All the silly billies who voted Labour. Clayton, that's such a sweet language, isn't it? Just saying, also because electric cars have a tendency to burst into flames at the slightest collision. That's why the speed limit is being lowered. It's definitely got something to do with the electric cars or the self-driving cars or whatever. Jules from Bristol.